All right. Have how many of you are at all familiar with the Sprawl or Powered by the Apocalypse in general?
I've never played it before, but I've spent some time reading handbooks and playbooks and things like that for the sprawl.
Okay.
Played about
Only
twice.
one.
I started watching a YouTube stream of some people playing the sprawl on Roll20 as well, just to kind of get a handle on it. I found a free version of the handbook, so I'm going to let you look at that and see if it's the same version, and let me know if I can still use that.
In the I posted actually in the forums for this game. I posted links to a PDF version of the manuals if you don't have them, as well as a link to where you could get them if you were so inclined.
Yeah, that's just a free one that I found. So if I could, if that would still work, that would be preferred for me.
I think they changed a bunch of stuff in the playbooks. It's like the beta version or something.
Yeah. It's version 0.2 apparently.
Oh, yeah. The links that I put, I put a link to the purchasing, but I also put a link to copies of them. So like, I have a copy that I bought, and I I had checked with him, and he's good with sharing that with players as long as at least one person in the game had owned it. So the link that I have is the full 1.0 release version of it. And there's also a link to the drive-through RPG if you were choosing to buy it as well. But the other things, the MC sheets are free. You can freely get those anywhere, and those are very useful. I definitely recommend having those. I actually printed a couple of them just because they're so useful. It's good just to have a copy right in front of me.
That was a question. Can't you have them on Roll20? The character sheet?
Yeah, it gets. I used to put them into the journals, and I can do that in the future, but it ended up being easier just for everyone to have the PDFs and be able to look at them on their own instead of trying to do it within this browser because it's a little bit fiddly. It's easier to look at it through a PDF client of some sort, or to actually have a physical sheet in front of you. But if that's the thing that we want to do, I can definitely upload like the MC sheets so that I can bring that up for reference as needed.
Yeah, because I know that I'm going to forget all of these moves too.
Yeah,
that are applied to them.
You probably won't, because honestly, there's not that many of them. But it's good to have. You definitely need to have the sheet, because what you will forget is what happens when you do a move and roll a 10 plus, or what happens when you do a move and do a 7 and 9. So you're going to need to know those, as well as you probably want a copy of your playbook, because that's going to have a lot of details on your personal moves that are going to be useful to know. So if you, in another window, open the OneDrive link that I put into the forum, you can have access to those PDFs. I definitely recommend pulling the MC sheets and maybe the playbooks, and also the Midnight is the full core book, and that will be good. Tonight I would say you need the MC sheets, and we can just make do with that. We don't need the rest, but that's there if you want to look closer. We may need to go through it a little bit just as we're creating characters because there's more detail there, but since I have that, I can go through it. I could probably screenshot sections and post them up here too, so that shouldn't be too big of an issue. Alright, so let me, if anyone wants to, if while I'm getting this set up, you want to grab that MC sheet, that would be good if you don't have it already, while I get this.
I don't have it printed, but I might print it along with the playbook when I have chosen my character.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have to get that off OneDrive?
Yeah, I have a link in the forums. There's a forum post I called Manuals, and there's a OneDrive link in there. You should be able to just click it and have a list of the files and download them as needed. Let me know if that's not working for you.
Okay.
So So the playbooks we're definitely going to need. So I'll have to get a copy of those up for anyone who doesn't actually pull that down. Hopefully you all can have a local copy. You don't have to necessarily print it, but at least having it accessible so that you can look at it would be good. But first step that we're going to need to go through, actually, okay, just reading through this. So what is this? I'm going to read through a little bit of this preparing to play. This we don't need to read through. Let's see what level. So some questions that we need to ask just about the setting. I was talking about this a little bit with a couple of you, but this is probably something we need to discuss with all of you. Hold on. Why is my window not showing?
Yeah, so I can open up all the playbooks, but I can't like edit them or like fill them in.
Oh yeah, no. That you'll probably. So we have character sheets in here. I'll actually create one when we choose the sheets.
You just meant as like reference.
Yes.
Okay,
that character sheet actually, if you just go through it, it's basically a step-by-step list on how to create the character, and you just go down, and it tells you exactly what to do. So, and it's really good reference because the character sheets that I have in here. Let me show you what one of these looks like. It's not visible to everyone, so let me make this visible. Gosh, why is this all here? I have my entire journal from a whole different set of games, which is not really useful. Okay, let me make a character. Let's see. That's fine. Can be edited by all players. Okay, so I just created a sheet. Do you see? Did this pop up for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. If you go to the second tab, character sheet.
I like the animations on that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the sheets, I have some issues with it, but it's a pretty good sheet. And this is basically, we'll use this to store everything you need to store. So you won't, everything that's on that, the playbooks in the PDF, you can store here one way or the other. Some of it's a little easier than in that playbook, some of it's not quite as nice, but if you have the playbook as reference and this as the actual source of truth, that'll be what we need. Now, as far as setting, when is the Sprawl set? So that's a question that we need to figure out. When is this set? When do we want to play? Is this something we want to be like high tech, kind of just a little bit future? How I don't know, do you have any preference on what you want the setting to be like as far as general flavor, timing, anything?
One way that I was thinking about it was kind of like the Blade Runner approach, to where like, you know, it's kind of set like when today would be like 21st century, but technology has just exponentially kind of grown. So it's not like, you know, 2400 or anything like that. There's still like, not everything's like AR or, you know, too advanced. Like there's still like the hacker move jack in. I would imagine that they're actually, you know, plugging into something, or not just, you know, accessing like the actual matrix. That's something that I'll talk to you about later because I want to play a hacker.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I guess I've been thinking about setting like in terms of how hacking would go because I'm into that. But
right.
I think the question will be, is Wi-Fi a thing or not? I get that kind of tip it from a sort of low tech to the more new cyberpunk.
also, I feel like another line that's drawn is hover cars too. You know,
Yeah, can anybody?
is that something that only like the really rich have? You know,
Right. Yeah, I think we can kind of say that we have some pretty advanced technology, but it's not going to be something everyone has. Like hover cars, probably most people don't even have cars. Most people have to rely on taxis and other public transportation. And the people who do have cars, maybe they have to have them rented or leased, or they have them for some professional purpose or something. But yeah, it's definitely going to be that's a more affluent thing.
But
Like maybe.
is flying a big deal in a game? Like, is it a difficult thing to access, or is it just everywhere? Every taxi can levitate or whatever. Like, our highway is still a thing.
Yeah, I think I tend to not want to make flying something that's extremely easy. Like flying is flying similar to how it is today. If you're really rich, it's not a problem. For most people, it's either something you have to go to make a choice on whether it's worth it or not, or you just don't do it.
Hmm.
So even if there are hovering cars, they're not able to fly. They still require roads or special area to operate. They can't just go completely off road and they can't leave the ground.
So, for example, not how some of these cars in the background that you have are flying.
Right. Yeah, this is just a random. Yeah,
Yeah.
this scene doesn't necessarily relate.
Of course.
Although maybe in some of the biggest cities, there's enough people that are completely rich that this is what they look like. Maybe. Maybe
Yeah, that's
not,
like
but
the downtown, like more corporate area.
right. So maybe the technology exists and people who are really rich do it, and in the biggest cities, this is common and that's public transportation, but that's not something that a person typically will just have access to.
I also think is having corporations as enemies, like slash employers. That's like another tool to put them above us, like physically and metaphorically. It gives them a certain power, which I think is good.
Exactly. And they're going to use that to every advantage they have. I mean, that's pretty much the key to this entire setting is how corporations are just there, omnipresent above you, just pushing you down.
Right.
But for
So, yeah.
instance, would the driver character have a flying car?
They could. So they have a number of options, and there are some VTOLs in those options, but it wouldn't necessarily be a flying car. It would be like a VTOL type vehicle. But there are
Yes, but
the
I mean, if we're going for flying cars for rich people, would it somewhat include the driver or not?
it could. I mean, we'd
Because I mean,
discuss that.
if we have to do like chase scenes or something, and we're the only one with the grounded car, could be fun as well. But just wanted to know.
Yeah, it's just that like it will take attention. The one flying car doing loops in the air.
It would probably also have some sort of tags. I'm assuming like cyberware would. Like a cyberpunk like of your financial status wouldn't be able to access something like that. So you'd probably be like owned or hunted. I would assume.
Right.
Or there'd be serious issues with your hover car.
Yeah, could be. I mean, basically, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but at the same time, you aren't, unless it makes sense for your character, you aren't generally an affluent type person, so you probably wouldn't have anything way out of line from that. But similarly, like right now, if you had a car and someone had a helicopter, yeah, corporations might have access to helicopters and air vehicles that you don't, and yeah, you'll have to figure out how to deal with that.
Because basically, I'm still on the flying cars. But if they have flying cars and we PCs don't, I think we're gonna have a lot of trouble to.
That would definitely be something you would want to accommodate for, then, yeah.
Yes.
And that might be the case, and we might make that the case.
Okay.
And maybe that's a good thing to do, in fact, just to make things a little bit more interesting. But in general, yeah, I think that it's basically similar to today's tech, but a little further out. Like, we have the technology to do essentially flight on a more individual basis, but it's not something that everyone does. A driver isn't everyone. A driver is pretty much a hobbyist who could have pieced together what they need to have kind of something that could fly, but it's going to have some negatives. It's not going to be the same thing that Megacorps would be tooling around in, but it's definitely something they could do. And if anyone you wanted to be a driver, we can definitely discuss that and figure out how to make that work. And like he had said, maybe that means you're owned, and it actually was a Megacorp who paid the bills for that. So maybe it is a really good vehicle, but now you have to deal with being tracked and other issues.
Maybe it could need a license or something.
Right. Yeah.
So as far as us not being too high tech but a little bit more advanced, what would be some examples of how cyberware would look?
Yeah.
Are you able to, is there AR? Like, are we able to use holograms and things like that. Like if I open a cyber deck, do I have a hologram to look at, or am I virtually on a computer screen?
What I would recommend, and so this is my suggestion, and you guys can tell me whether you like it or not. But in general, whatever we call whatever this is, whatever the matrix, the network, the mesh, the whatever it happens to be, we'll figure out what we call it. But that network, I would say that it's at 3 levels. There's the level we have today where you have console access, you can do things via keyboard or via various inputs, and you can do that, and people do that, but you're very limited at both the speed of your interface as well as what you're able to see. There's AR, which not everyone has access to, but a lot of people do. You could probably get glasses that allow you to see AR in like cities that are constantly bombarding you
Is
with
that what
advertisements.
cyber eyes would be? Would be glasses more so than actual eye implants?
Well, this is definitely so. Cyberware, there's people who have complete arms replaced with mechanical arms that are extremely advanced, or just prosthetic. There's both. And cyber eyes could actually be full replacement of your eyes, and they could work just as well as normal eyes with interface, or they could also be something to where you get an implant that overlays into your vision. And you could also have glasses that provide AR, but not to the level that cyber eyes would. So
basically for
that's
everything, there's varying levels of advanced technology. It just depends on how much you spend or what access you have to it.
yes. And once you get to the point, so you got AR, where cyber eyes and maybe unique contact lenses or glasses could have access to see those areas. And again, that's not something that everyone will see, but that's probably mid tier, where there's a like mid-level people would probably have access to at least the bare bones of that, and because corporations are going to want people to see that because it allows them to just like flood them with advertising, so they're probably making that type of technology available. But
So that's like
for things,
Ready One level. If anyone saw that movie, like, well, it's a virtual reality thing.
so
At that
yeah,
point.
the next layer is basically neural implants. And if you have a neural implant, there's another layer that's basically pure VR, where everything is abstracted. And when you're in that, you're outside of your body. You are completely immersed, and you interact with the network at the speed of your mind, and you
So
have
that's
a
what
huge
that's what the
advantage.
hacking would be. That's the matrix is the third level.
Yes, exactly. Unless you chose to interact at the one of the top 2 levels, because you would also be able to do that, probably at a disadvantage, but those are options. But yes, you could
So
go because you have a neural link. You could go all the way in and have that full abstraction. Have you ever
here's a
played Shadowrun at
what?
all, like the later revisions?
No.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
then that would be
as far as like cyberpunk lore and things, I'm pretty fresh as far as that goes.
okay.
'Cause
So I had
for
a like the question we need to answer in the world to make sense of it. What's the restriction to operate in that like third level? Like, why isn't everybody doing it? Like,
You need cyberware to do it. You need a neural implant, and that's
hmm.
not something that very many people can afford. And in fact, in most cases, if any of you can afford it, it's because something specific happened. A court put it in, you stole it and had it put in, and now someone's after you because you did it. I mean, there's going to be a benefit, but you're also going to have a negative side to that. And for all the
So it's
cyberware,
completely restricted to anyone who can't like interface directly with the machine. Like,
basically,
it's
yeah,
like, couldn't you access the matrix with like a regular computer or something?
you could.
Jack in. Okay.
You can still access it. You're just not at the same level. You're not moving as
Yeah.
quickly. You can probably see an
Yeah.
abstraction
Again,
of it,
like
of
Shadowrun.
visualization. Yeah. And the same with AR. With AR, you can see the same things that the VR level does. Although there might be some things that like they specifically disallow you to use them if you're not on a certain level of thing as a security or something else. But in general, most things are going to be available at different levels. The same way that most websites right now are available on mobile as well as desktop
Okay.
type browsers. But this is a third level. So, and then there's also abstraction, like the VR itself. If it's accessing something that someone built in an earlier level, it will automatically apply some of this abstraction to it to allow you to interact with it in the same way, even though it's not actually set up that way. So the
so
full
the
network
question,
is basically available via VR, but
As someone who wants to play a hacker, does that third tier matrix, does that look like? I was reading about it because I was curious. Does that actually let you have an avatar in the matrix that you're controlling? So, like for example, I was reading about someone's player wanted to bypass a firewall, and MC created a virtual reality where he was like a peasant in this medieval times, and the firewall was the guards, and he had to
Right.
physically get past them or talk past them, and then that was him breaking the firewall.
Yep.
But in this realistic VR way.
Yeah, and that's part of that abstraction. And in some cases, that abstraction is imposed by the node that you're in. But as a hacker, you could theoretically actually override the abstraction of the node to something of your own flavor, which is basically you getting some advantage when you're in there. So you could take it, maybe it had that medieval feel, and then you override it to have some other look that's more like what your theming is, which maybe gives you a +1 while you're interacting with that, and then yeah, and you can kind of define how that abstraction looks for you.
Cool.
In
And
some
are
cases, this is going to be very, very explicit. Like it's just like what you picture now as VR, just like like old style VR where you have wireframes and something. And in some places, it's going to be full, like you're just in a Japanese pagoda and you're dealing with samurai who are the ice that's wandering around and
Cool.
things.
That sounds awesome.
Since we're on Matrix issues, two questions. Are we still dealing with like fixed personas? Like you have your persona and it never changes whatever you do? And the other question would be like, would the Matrix be like Shadowrun Matrix or like more? Sorry about that. Like the actual Matrix again based on Shadowrun, or more like internet? I mean, in terms of accessibility. I mean, with the Matrix in Shadowrun, you can do everything from where you stand. You have to be closer to what you to the place you wanna go. For instance, I mean, you can't access everything from a certain point. Will we be able to do that here or not?
Yeah, so that's going to one we can define that. So like you said, can we do that here or not? I'm thinking similar to Shadowrun. Basically, if you have wireless access, you're going to have to figure out where that wireless access is coming from. Like how does each device have its own wireless? And I think it does. And then what is the range on that? And I think that everything does have a range. And in general, most things are connected to the network. So once you're in one, you can eventually work your way through other things from any physical location. But there's some things that you're going to have to get near. Like there's going to be subsection, like there's going to be subnetted areas that aren't, they either are completely walled off from or not even connected to the main network, and some that might just be walled off from the network. So you might be able to get through the firewalls if they're just walled off, but maybe there's some that are completely isolated where you actually have to be physically nearby. And depending on the level of security, that might be even closer in some cases than in others.
And
I like that variety because I think like the ability being named to jack in, like that sort of implies some sort of physical connection. Maybe not in every instance with the neural implants because it's so advanced, but you shouldn't just be able to like pull up your smartphone and hack anything. I think there should be some sort of real world challenge as well.
Right. And in general, there probably will be. If it was worth getting into, then they're going to be sure that they think that people aren't going to be able to get into it, which means that you're going to go out of your way to get into it.
Again, if you want, it can. I think it can be based on what Shadowrun does, which is you have the smartphones and you still have the deck again. They look like more like tablets, sorry. But it's still a thing in Shadowrun because
I think in general, everyone's going to have kind of a PDA, and the hacker will have a deck as well, and their deck is probably basically just a super advanced PDA. Have you ever seen The Expanse?
Nope.
Not yet, actually.
No? Okay. Well, basically, just imagine an iPhone, but instead of an iPhone, it's like a clear sheet of plexiglass. But then when you power it on, the screen shows up over that. So I imagine the PDAs being something similar to that, or maybe the higher ed tech ones are. You could have a really old clunky one that's like a kid case around like this massive thing where you have to lug it around. So that's kind of up to you. That's not going to have any real impact on the mechanics. So in fiction, you can have it be whatever you want it to be. But in general, yeah, the hacker will have a deck that they'll have to name, and it will have abilities beyond what everyone's PDA does. But otherwise, everyone in general has access to a PDA that they can use for communications. They can use for general lookup. You can like get GPS, basic stuff you could do with a smartphone today. And occasionally there might be limitations. It might be that you could be tracked through that. It might be that other things happen from that. Everyone has a uniquely identified one. So probably you guys will have a way of blocking that, or you've got special, basically you've had the tags marked off, whatever the equivalent of that in this world is. But yeah, PDAs I think are something that's pretty ubiquitous with most people.
Do we have like an equivalent to like Google, or is it more like Darknet? Like you have to know where you're going, or you have the archived option to see the other websites?
Both. It's going to be similar. It's not Google necessarily, although at this
Yeah,
point I
no,
think Google's probably one of the megacorps. But
we can do that.
yeah.
We can do Google as a megacorp.
You as a anyone as a non-hacker will know how to find the things that are publicly
Okay,
findable.
okay.
So you'll be able to do general research and look things up that
Okay.
would be publicly accessible. A hacker or someone with a little bit more knowledge could go a little deeper, find things that are dark web. I'm sure that there's plenty of dark web here. There's probably there's anything we have today probably exists there times however many, significantly more. So yeah, I think to answer your question, yes. There is
Yes.
something like Google that you can use just as a general search. And depending on the type of information you're looking for, it'll be easier or harder to find. And whether or not you can actually find it will likely depend on some role, just to see what you actually are able to manage. Usually that'll be like a research role. Let's see, what else? So as far as setting, so I mean, do you have a desire to have this be a real location, a real world, anything, or are you okay with abstracting it to just a generalization of what we have today? It sounds like we're already doing alternate reality because we're kind of doing similar to current time, but alternate reality. I would say maybe 15, 20 years future from now, but then based on an 80s timeline where things went the way that 80s movies thought they would be going type thing.
Right.
Okay.
I think thematically that sounds pretty good.
All right. But other than the wireless, I think wireless is probably a good thing because the whole concept of having to physically connect to everything seems cool in movies, but it gets tiring. It gets
Right.
frustrating. But at
Um,
times that's going to be necessary. So yeah.
Right?
There's probably some old hardware that does require actual connections that hasn't been updated since wireless became a big thing. Just like there's still 8-track players that you could probably find in some places that you need.
as far as canon goes, I don't think that I'm interested in like actually having Google be one of the megacorps
Yeah,
person,
no. Okay.
or like today's corporation canon. Like I said that I was watching one of those streams, and one of them was a multimedia corporation, and it was a like
Disney?
it was Disney. So I was watching the one with
How did I
Adam.
know that? That just sounds like it should be an evil corp.
Yeah, I was like, it made sense, but I just thought it was kind of cheesy, you know?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's take it to a whole like different reality now, not no references and stuff.
Yep,
I'm
that's
okay
fine.
with
The corporations that we designed, bought out the corporations that we see today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I prefer having it entirely made up anyway because then yeah, it's just you don't have to worry about trying to line things up and worry about how the references are going together.
Right.
And it since we're already alternate reality, it helps you suspend disbelief more when you don't have things that are tying you to now anyway. So
Right.
so I'm good with that. I just used since you brought up Google, I figured that's a perfect example of an evil megacorp of the future.
Definitely.
All right, so we're
at
setting
the same
kind of
time at the same time we're going to have to work out the geography, the world, and this kind of thing.
yes,
That's
and we
the
don't we
downside
can
of it.
start very we can start very vague on that and iron
Yeah.
it out as we need. So we could probably like start drawing up a map or just not a full map, but just an idea of where things are in relation to each other and flesh
But
that
I
out.
mean, even for us as species, we won't be able to say, "Hey, I'm Chinese," if if China doesn't exist, for instance.
Well, if one of you says, "Hey, I'm Chinese," then China exists
Yeah.
right then. At that point in time, there it
Fair
is.
enough.
It's always been there. Just now you brought it up.
Ironically,
enough.
I wanted to play a Chinese hacker.
Okay.
So
Yeah, not a problem.
even like the Blade Runner, like where they call it like city talk, where I think he said it was like Japanese, German, and like
Right. It's like a mashup of all kinds of things
right,
that just, yeah.
like I'm sure people like hang on to like their lineage, but he's not. He wouldn't be like full Chinese at this point. He probably is a mix of
Right.
multiple ethnicities.
Yeah, and if you go far enough in the future, most of the ethnicities we have now would kind of blend into a more generalization anyway. But since we're close to now, it's totally fine if you have general ethnicities and general like countries that still exist. So as far as corporations being broken out, we can avoid that. But I don't see a huge problem with using regions and areas, even if the city doesn't necessarily fit in an exact existing location. Things like China can definitely exist. Or maybe at some point you realize that China's actually they took over Russia and now China is this entire northeast area of uh, of Asia. So
Or
it
you
doesn't have
just
to line up perfectly.
Neat.
And that is like as that comes up, feel free to just have that be the thing, and then once we define that, that's just how the world is, and it moves forward that direction. We don't have to, if it doesn't need to be defined, we don't need to define it until it needs to be defined, and then that's how it is. And that's how it's always been, it's just we hadn't talked about it yet. And if we need to retro anything, we can always do that too. Although, ideally, we build it and then we just keep building up instead of trying to fix what we built before.
Right.
Although, at some point, maybe we can just assume that we were unreliable narrators at some point and we were just wrong in our earlier thing. So we can do either. All right, so level of technology, we think we would talk through that pretty well. So one question to ask is, are the characters friends? I don't know if you guys have, we can figure this out more as we go, but up front, do you have any, well, what it says is, are the characters friends? Probably not. At the beginning of the game, the characters all know each other professionally, but if friendships develop, great. If not, if they stay professional acquaintances tied together by common employment history, that's fine too. So you don't necessarily have to like each other, but we are going to establish that you somehow all know each other. So that is one thing that we're
I'm
going
not
to define.
opposed to like if anyone wanted to do that, like the being friends thing, but I think that we would have to know a little bit more about our characters first.
yeah.
Right, and right
Yeah.
now, yeah, you're not going to do it yet. But as we build it out, we're going to get in. First, you're going to define the corporations we're going to be dealing with. Then we're going to define the characters, like the playbooks, and then the characters. You'll get your own character without a background, just kind of its looks, and then you'll kind of talk through how these characters interrelate. We'll do links where everyone is somehow linked to another person. Then you get other people involved, and then you can build in the backstory that makes sense from those links, and then you can figure out. Yeah, if you're friends, if you hate each other, if you're secretly trying to stab the guy in the back when he's in front of you, that type of thing.
Did the Sprawl keep the bound feature or not?
They changed it a
Between
little bit.
players?
They use links, so it's similar but different.
Okay.
So
we still
we'll
have
step-
something to connect between us.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, anytime you do help out or interfere with someone, you actually roll on how many of those connections you have. And once you build up enough connections with one person, you actually lose all the connections and then gain experience, which I'm trying to figure out how that works in fiction, but we'll figure that out when we get there. In general, though, I think once you get like 5 points of link, you convert that down to 0 link with that person, and you mark experience. But we'll see how
we
that
can
works.
get into the details later. I just
Exactly,
wanted to know
exactly.
that was something we could use from the beginning
Yeah.
between us. Okay.
Yes, and in fact, everyone will have at least one with someone else, and there will be at least one person who has one with you. So in that way, it's sort of similar to Dungeon World with the bonds, because there's one going each direction. Are the playbooks unique? No. So this is explicitly not the case in the Sprawl. You're disposable. If you fuck up, another hacker will step up to take your job, your context, and your deck. Actually, no. He'll laugh at your outdated deck and get the latest model. So yeah. We could, if you want, have multiple people playing the same playbook. That's not a problem. It might be more interesting just to be sure everyone's a different playbook, but don't feel constrained by that. So one thing you'll need to figure out, and you don't necessarily have to decide this now, but it might be good to, if you have a common idea, to discuss it. Who are we as a team? What kind of jobs do you do? Why are you a team? Things like that. So your corporate employers want to hire competent operatives. The kind of jobs they offer will depend on the skills the team has. So depending on what playbooks you have and what skill sets you think you have, that might define why you are a team and what you are. So if you have an idea, we could start aiming the playbooks towards that. But if you don't, we can figure that out after we get the characters in.
So do we do corporations or characters first?
Corporations. That we just hit. So right now we just had the pre-discussion.
Okay.
Now we do step 0. Step 0, which is define the corporations.
Step 0 of section 0.
I know I love asking questions, but I have one more about the Chrome and the genetic. Like, is Chrome accessible to everyone? We talked about the VR, but for instance, the augmented arms or things like that, are they common or not? And
Yes.
are genetic modification there as well? Maybe for rich people, like in Cyberpunk, for instance. In Cyberpunk, you can have people with cat ears. Is it a thing limited to rich people? Not at all, or everybody can get on some level?
So at a high level, so one, cyberware is expensive. So not everyone in the world has cyberware, but it's super common. So it's expensive but common. All of you are absolutely going to have at least one piece of cyberware. That's just a thing that every single character has. At least one. Some have more than one. And you're going to have to figure out how you paid for it because they're so expensive. In some cases, it's because you were owned by a corporation. In some cases, it's because you backstabbed someone and stole it, or somehow you're hunted by someone. So somehow you got it and you're hunted. And in some cases, you just scraped up enough money to buy it, but it's in bad condition because you had to pay a street doc to get it installed, and he wasn't the best. Or maybe you got some poor quality stuff and put it in, so that'll have some negatives. But every one of you is going to have cyberware, and cyberware is very, very, very common, especially with corporate mercenaries and corporate entities in general. Anyone who's backed by a corporation likely has cyberware because the corp will pay for that. But not everyone on the street has cyberware, so it's not like the guy in the corner of the street who's just lives there. He's probably not going to have any unless he was an old soldier who happened to have something installed and then they just kicked him off when he wasn't useful anymore and he still has it. That might happen, but in general, only the people who have worked for Megacorps and had reason to have cyberware installed, but very common. Now, what that looks like, whether it could be that some of the cyberware is genetic modification. Just because we're calling it cyberware doesn't mean that in fiction we can't say that this is actually from some sort of bioengineering versus actually like lopping off an arm and putting on something electronic. Like maybe your cyber abilities is actually from some genetically engineered function that happened versus mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
Or not. I mean, that's kind of up to us to decide. But I'm not against that, as long as it works mechanically. However, mechanically balanced the way it is in these manuals, I'm fine with it in fiction coming across however it needs to. Did that answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay,
Thanks.
great. All right. So step 0, define the corporations. So each of us, including me, are going to name and briefly describe a megacorporation or an entity of similar scope, like an organized crime syndicate or a government. The level of detail of that description is going to vary depending on the taste of our group. So we can either just give a name and a general area that they work in, or we can go really detailed. Like if it fits into one of your backstories, you could add more detail. And we can also add detail later. We can start with vague and work in the detail as we go, and we can do a combination of those. Let's see, where was I? Yeah. The level of detail is going to differ based on the player, the group, and the game. We're not doing so for an ongoing game, you might describe organizational goals and important corporate divisions, iconic locations, or secret facilities. And again, we can define those later or now. You can draw inspiration from cyberpunk and near future media, or from contemporary companies and news stories. We can combine currently active corporations. Oh, that's okay. This is just giving examples of ways to do this. If you want some examples for corporate names, there's some in Appendix 1. I could probably screenshot that and put that up here if you wanted, but we can try just pulling some out of the air first.
Where did you say it was? Because I have the Sprawl open in
Okay,
front
so
of me.
page 48 is where we are, and the Appendix 1 it looks like it's back at page 242. There's a bunch of
Let's go
types of
to
businesses like biotech, consumer electronics, financial, government, heavy industry, illegal, media,
There I
matrix,
am.
telecom.
Yes. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, you got it?
Yeah, found it.
All right. And then, let's see. Oh yeah, corporations. And now, define corporations that you're interested in, because these are going to be the ones that you get tangled with the earliest and the most often. They're the ones that are going to be directly tied to your backstories, probably. They'll be the ones that are most relevant. So choose some that you think would be interesting to interact with and probably be against. In some cases, maybe they'll be on your side, but generally, probably not. Occasionally, they'll pay you, but most of the time, they're probably going to be trying to get rid of you. Maybe because they paid you and now that you know too much.
So one idea that I wanted to pose to everyone is like this game is really focused around the corporations too, but there's obviously some sort of government system, which was the last thing like kind of swept under the rug by the sprawl. But I was wondering how everyone felt about that. So like we have all the mega corporations, but basically there's also a government system that's kind of in a chokehold by all of these, very rich corporations.
Right, like this had actually said, or an entity of similar scope, like an organized crime syndicate or a government. So that there's
I
probably governments that are fighting the megacorps, and there's I'm sure plenty of organized crime syndicates. So yeah, those are fine as well.
Because I was gonna pose a government unless anyone thinks that it would be more valuable to just name another corporation.
I
It's
uh,
like no
to be
prerogative.
honest, sorry. Go on.
I'm just saying, like you can insert whatever interests you. Like if you're going for a government, do that, and that's part of the fiction now. So like
Right.
don't that.
Exactly.
And a government, honestly, the megacorps act like governments, so
Yeah.
there's not going to be that much difference between a government and a megacorp, other than like why they existed in the first place. But now they're probably in it for power as much as megacorps are in it for profit, so they'll act in similar ways.
Yeah, I could see them interacting with corporations just how they would. Like it's kind of like they need each other. Like you can't kill them all off. Like you got to lop off all the heads of the Hydra, or else they're just gonna regenerate in some way. Like they all need each other. But I feel like a government would be mostly trying to combat the other corporations rather than work with them.
Right.
I mean, in classical cyberpunk settings, government pretty much has lost the war already, but we can have them like a step before they lose.
Or
Right.
I mean, there's still governments that are fighting. They're trying to maintain their hold. Like there could be governments that were in major dictatorships or communist areas where the megacorps haven't gotten a full hold, and they're still struggling
Yes.
to try to like they're fighting against them to try to keep that from happening.
So I personally just think that would be an interesting entity. So my idea, and it would also give us a location too. So my government is it's going to be post United States. The idea is that um, the original United States government has collapsed with all of this, hoarding of money, and the governments have kind of broken down regionally. So the government that I'm going to name is called the 13, and it's just going to
Okay.
be northeastern United States, 13 colonies area, basically. It doesn't
Go
have
ahead
to
and
be those exact states, but just kind of that region.
all right. In the bottom, let's see. Actually, how do I want to do this? In the bottom, there's four boxes, four
Yep.
black boxes. If you want to just stick that in text in like, let's see, to me, you're the second from the left. I don't
Okay.
know how. So if you want to just type that in there.
Got
I'll
it.
probably put this in a journal entry instead, but for now that will be good.
No problem. So I don't know if someone wants to come up with a name for a city or something like that, since we have a general region at least.
Okay, so you said that was the third. Say that again.
The 13.
Yep, the 13. Again. Oh, that's why it's my library. I don't want that. Right. Oh, that's why. It doesn't show up until you actually press enter, I guess, or click away from it. So a remnant of the U.S. government. Got it.
I'm gonna add on that a tiny amount, but yeah.
Okay. Do you want to describe that to us at all a little more, or is that what you have so far?
As far as what?
So it's a remnant of the U.S. government. Do you have any more, like, do you have an idea of what that is? A brief description, just to give us a more to go off of, or is that what you know so far?
I think that when I think about like their motives, that the corporations have kind of like taken over real estate and a lot of like the actual physical property of the region, and so that's why that's one of the motives of the government, is to just kind of like regain control, like physically, of their own area. I don't know if you want me to like come up with like, like the president, or I'm not sure what I should be describing, to be honest.
Just like why? So this is a remnant of the U.S. government. So basically, the U.S. government has largely fallen, and is this like a splinter cell that's trying to maintain itself? That's trying to come back? Is it trying? What are its goals? I
I
guess.
think
What are
I
its
think
main?
all of the different regions, like there's their like state and like the state governments like sort of banded together in different regions and are all now vying to regain control of the states, as well as push back on these corporations. And I don't know if the corporations span the whole nation. I would assume they do. Like the corporations that you guys might name might not be just located in the 13. I'm not sure what you think about that.
Well, I think the point is like multinationals, like they're everywhere. Even the 14 probably have their reaches in
Yeah,
the wide.
they're bigger than like the Americas. They're all over the globe, basically.
Like they have their secret agents, whatever. I
So
guess
what?
like really good to like pinpoint sort of what they are as a like are they the CIA but taken to an extreme, or
Are they centralized, or are they more decentralized and just working as like a guerrilla group?
The 13.
Yeah.
Well, if there's different regions and different governments in the United States, I would say that they're kind of guerrilla, that they're not trying to work with the rest of the other governments anymore. That's already kind of devolved. And so, I mean, in our setting, they'll probably be working against the corporations in their area, but they might also, be having different missions against other governments as well. And that might even open up some interesting opportunities for us as a group. Maybe we're
So
needed at a job like on the Western United States to do something different, or I'm not
So
sure.
you might have actually answered this, but what are their general goals? Like, what is their main purpose, their main goal?
To push the corporation control out of their region, and to, I would say, a bigger goal than that is to also defeat the other governments, to get control over them as well, and gain control over the whole United States as it would have been today or in the 80s when everything kind of devolved in our setting, I guess.
Okay, so the U.S. itself collapsed. and there's still remnants of the old government that are scattered throughout the old continental U.S. or also
Right.
the air.
Yeah, like I could see there definitely being like a southwestern government, or like like a government of the South, or things like that, like the Midwest government, or the Northwest government.
Are they
So you
like
think that the U.S. government splintered into pieces, but there's a remnant of the federal that's still trying to maintain, but maybe the states had just seceded and
Yeah,
become their own things. Like
yeah.
Texas is now Texas and not the United States.
Right, and that's something that you could come up with too. I guess mine would be a little bit more bigger because it's 13 states general, like that just region. But
Uh-huh.
I also like the idea of having a remnant of the federal government still, um, maybe thinking that they have the right now, or everyone thinks that they should have the power. But I like the idea of having a remnants of the old U.S. government. That sounds pretty cool, personally.
Okay. So then that will be yours. And what is their so their main goal is to regain power, but do they have a like how do they fund themselves? Do they have a do they like if it was a megacorp, they have a general area of interest like biotech or technology or something. Is the 13 more military? Is it like do they handle do they
Yeah,
have any other source of
yeah, like when you said gorilla, I think that's a good way to do it. Think about it. Like they probably have someone who's in charge, and some higher ups, like some suits, but they don't have anyone who's giving them money. I would assume they have like some loyal members, some fanatics, but most of the way that they're going to be making money and funding themselves is going to be through some of these guerrilla jobs against the corporations, because they have all the money. They have to
okay.
attack the corporations to get anything, because they're almost just as poor as we will be.
Right.
I
so
would.
like
So I was going to say they might be a major employer then, but then if they don't have money to pay you,
Well, I'm assuming they do have money because they've been running jobs. It's not like they're dead broke, but they're not in the scale of the corporations. They're not rich by any means. They're
they have money to pay small teams of mercs, but they don't have money like megacorps have to just throw huge walls of troops at a problem.
right.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to add to that, or anything anyone else wants to ask about that?
yeah, like are they sort of a mercenary group at that point then? Like
Um,
ideal of the side, like if the looking at it from like a business standpoint, are they like a private army or
I would say that they aren't a military group. They are a mercenary group, but they do hire mercenary groups. I would
so
think
they're
majority
like
of them wear suits and are still politicians, at least in their minds, and most of their followers might be like citizens, or people in that sense, and they might still have a small military themselves, or a small army, but they're trying to be in the end game like a civilized nation again, but they just have to do it through these really gritty means.
hmm. So
Uh,
more like Black Ops than like full on.
Yeah, hiring out special operatives and things to like steal oil from a corporation, or things like that. Maybe they're waging war against the Midwest region's government, and they need to hire us out to go steal some arms for their army.
Yes, my question is like, why are they not wiped out? Like,
Because I would say that they're kind of rogue. They're kind of underground, uh,
so they're not public. Like
like
they're
like
not.
Fallout 4, like the railroad. Like they're kind of underground. I guess when I said government, that was kind of misleading, because it made you think that they are the government of the whole area, but they're just trying to be that again.
Hmm.
I think they're a little bit more underground than I've portrayed, I guess.
that brings another question, which is about citizenship. Do we have one? Do we have a corporate one? Do we have not dead yet government which gives us citizenship?
I think hold on to that one because as we define these corps and figure out
Yeah,
where you fit into things, maybe that will
you're
help
right.
to figure out that. But definitely
But I
keep
think
that question in mind,
yes.
and maybe that'll guide where we're going with this.
I think that it might be like a perception thing, personally. Like maybe the corporations think like, oh, you live here, like you're in this city, so you're a so and so citizen. But like the 13 might think like, oh, you're in our region, so you're, like a citizen of the 13. Or I kind of picture it as not like completely lawless. Like I think that corporations might have police, but that corporations would probably decide the citizenship, like because they're the utmost power. Like my government isn't a government,
Okay.
So like,
Maybe
Right.
like
It was a government, but now it's just people who own
doesn't matter
online what it
anymore.
was.
yeah.
They might even rent their cops from a corporation, for instance.
Yeah, like private police.
Yes.
So yeah, I think in like terms of the role of the government, that falls to corporations. But if corporations are waging war against each other, I don't know how they figure out jurisdiction and things like that. I guess we'll just have to see in the future.
Right.
You can
Yeah.
say it's by land. Like if they own the estate and they protect it.
Yeah,
As long as you have a big enough
Apologies,
army to
basically.
back you up.
and maybe in our sprawl, like certain districts are owned by different corporations.
Yeah, and it might have just broken down to if there's no government, it could just be squatter rights. Like whoever's there owns it, and if someone else can be there, then they will own it.
Yeah, and like it changes daily as people buy and sell properties.
Right.
Yeah, so something that needed to be the scope of a corporation, like it's a government, but it's guerrilla, but it also needs to be like expansive in a way. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to figure that out later.
Yeah. No, yeah, we can make that work.
And
Just realize that
about,
there's a good chance we're gonna piss them off, and you're gonna end up fighting them at some point, or working with them. But it's equally one way or the other.
Right.
Could go
They're
either
kind
way.
of like rebel groups and terror cells, from what I'm hearing. Like they're hiding amongst the corps and citizens and
Yeah, I picture it as like a secret society thing where maybe they have like a small logo that like only they would recognize, and because it still needs to be big enough to where it's like the spans of a corporation. So like a large underground society, I guess, of the real patriots that are still left over, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
I imagine their logo would be some sort of cyberpunk spin-off of the Stars and Stripes, the original Star Spangled Banner.
So if you were gonna give them a short blurb, like of a phrase, what would it be? Like guerrilla fighters, guerrilla government, fallen government.
Like their own slogan, like our
Yeah.
catchphrase, or
Like this is the 13, blah 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 blah. Like the
oh,
I can't think
I
of an
would go
example,
with
but
classic Uncle Sam. It would be the 13. We want you,
well, I don't.
Sam. Like,
Although having a motto, a logo, an iconic phrase, that's good actually. But that's not what I meant. I mean, if you were gonna describe this to people in like 3 or 4 words, this is the
Make 'em
13. They're a
freedom fighters.
okay. Okay. Who's next?
I can go.
Yep, that works.
Grab my computer charger. I'll be back in a couple minutes.
All right. So what I was thinking is like a company that has a monopoly on training and information and like teaching, basically. So they're big into skill softs and like training areas. Like they might own an entire island where they train Marines or whatever. And that's really their business. Like they sell you skills, basically.
Okay. So, okay, what is their product are things like the training itself and skill softs, or do they also do the cyberware?
Yeah.
The skill
Like
sets themselves.
everything you basically need. Right? Like you go to them to learn how to be a taxi driver, but also to learn how to be a jet fighter. And they like produce vocals, basically, in a way. And, like,
Do they deal in the cyberware itself with the the skill wires, or do they only produce skill sims?
I think they're big into skill sims, but also like they'll have what you need to train. Like if you need to train with a cyber implanted weapon, they might not be the best at it, but they'll have what they need to make it the instruction work.
Are they a major player in training other mercenary corps?
I want them to be like the only or the best. Like whoever isn't trained there is probably of a lower grade.
So if you're hiring security officers or a security detail, the first thing you're gonna look at is on their resume is where they got their training, and if this isn't the place,
Yeah,
then you're
it's
gonna be
like
like, hmm.
it's like Ivy League or like you want either people there or people who are cheap. Like that's
Okay. And
So is it kind of like a school?
yeah, it's like a school and a boot camp and a college and like a seminar and like everything you can think of that people will pay to learn, like they sell basically.
So again, I'm trying to think about how things goes as a whole, and my question would be: do other corporations on their territory, for instance, rent them for education?
Yeah, like you'll buy that from them. That's their exports basically.
Okay.
so do you send your people to their locations to get them trained, or do they come and do on-site training, or do they do
Oh yeah,
both?
either or, man. Like you probably can't do like big things like paratrooping camp in someone's office. It's like they'll have places to do it.
Okay. What are they called?
Cypher.
CYPHER?
No, CYPHU.
Ah. Just you or you are?
U.
Okay, so Cypher. Like that?
I can't see it. Wait a sec. Maybe I'll refresh the page. I break everything. I'll just send it. And,
Okay, you can't see on the left. Like I've got a list of corp timers. The first one is the 13. You don't see Saifu under that?
no, I don't. But like I sent it in the chat.
Okay. Okay, that's what I spelled. I don't understand why. So did you see the ping that someone just sent? You might need to scroll to the top left.
Yeah. Okay, I see.
Okay. And if you're not seeing much of this on the screen, there's a zoom. There's either a magnifying glass that you can zoom down, or on the right side there's a bar that you can slide up and down to get more on the screen. Just so you know. Okay, so Saifu, and they are. Oops. They are training. And do they sell skill softs, or do they mostly just use skill softs as part of their?
They're so big that they like do anything basically. Right? Like
Yeah.
you can buy a skill
Well,
soft and the basic instruction, like they're a brand at that point.
and that is one thing about all these, is at least the megacorps, maybe not like the 13, but the megacorps, all of them dabble in pretty much everything, but they all have a primary focus. So for Saifu, it's the primary focus is training and skill softs, but they probably do a ton of it. They do biotech, they probably do technology, they probably do finance and other things in a little bit, but their main core business is training.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else about them that you want to detail?
No, I think we
Okay.
got the bullet points.
So to sum
Alright.
up that one again, just because I was away for a second, you said it's training of.
Yeah, so like they sell, skills basically. They are a boot camp and a college and a seminar and like anything that people will go for education. They took over and they'll
They're
sell.
they are yeah, they're the premier training institution in the world basically. So anyone who needs to know anything, if they haven't come from them, it's like it's like the highest level college type deal. Like
They
if you're
control all
hiring
the
someone,
knowledge.
if they come from this college, they're going to be ahead of everyone else who submits resumes who didn't do that thing. So
I was
Yeah,
saying in general, it's a corporation that controls all of the knowledge. Like that's terrifying.
yeah,
Well,
but all of the train label kind.
all the
But
vocational knowledge,
yeah,
and
So
specifically about
this
how to get
spans
that
across
knowledge
the
into
world.
other people or
yeah.
into
So they
people.
can just teach people whatever they wanted to, like their own versions of history and all sorts of things.
yeah, probably.
Like they could. They
I'm
could
assuming
really
they mostly
people-
focus on skills, or do they also do knowledge work? Do they teach people things like you said, like do they teach people knowledge, like history?
Yeah, like
Do
I,
they?
I could see them like being like having their hand in all of the different schools, or like every education system like has their trademark on it. Like
You will go to them to get like a sales executive, but also to get like a text level. They teach anything.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions on that one?
So these guys like sell their services across the world,
Yeah.
and they make like partnerships or something with other educational things, or are they just the go-to to everything? Like there are no
That's a megaphone.
competitors
They
to them.
buy other educational things.
All right.
They almost a monopoly, basically. You almost can't learn from them.
Okay. And I'm not clear yet if they actually provide on-site services to corps who want training, or if they require everyone to go to one of their campuses for this. But we can figure that out as we go.
I'm sure the higher level people just get skill chips.
Probably.
They set the skill chips.
They just learn it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Who's next? Let's see. We've got. How about Hale?
Okay. So I had a little time to think. So I'm about a company for entertainment, which I called Tanoshi Yele Blast. That's how it's written. So just imagine something between Disney and Nintendo, but far more new. They're like the new kids in the playground because we're in a dystopian world, and entertainment has been like the lowest priority of most corporations, and that's when Tanoshi Yele Blast came up. They basically tried to patch everything that was about entertainment to buy it at not very expensive price, let's say, and to make their own things with the idea of being loved by people. For instance, if you buy your phone, It's kind of, I guess it's expensive. Maybe not the phone because of the advertisement, but every piece of technology is expensive. Tanoshi Yele Blast made the bet to provide the people cheap ways of entertainment, but like imagine a video game console. You buy it for cheap, but the games you want more games. They're expensive and they're addictive. Same with probably movies. You will have your they might be number one in television because they propose they make the cheapest. But again, they know that their videotape are going to be uh, more expensive, and people are going to want more and more and more.
So they're big into lost
So-
leaders.
Sorry?
So they're big into lost leaders. They give you a cheap upfront thing that you have to constantly pay into. Like-
No, you don't. They,
Like
I mean,
microchip.
they don't do. They try to have the public opinion in support, so they don't. They try to avoid things like DLCs, for instance, with video games, or options you buy. They just want you to buy more and more and consume more and more,
Right.
because life is shitty, and they're like, okay, with us, life is fun, so you wanna buy from us. And one of the other reasons people like them is because in front of the media and stuff, they kind of advocate for people to have more money in some way. Like, oh, this corporation, what they do is very expensive. Look at us, we're so cheap. Because again, if people like them, if people buy from them, they don't realize how much money they're giving them.
Hmm.
So they're not nice guy, but they play the nice guys, which is kind of how they succeed and why they're dangerous as well.
So are these the guys who are making the AR that some people are seeing? Is that one of their?
No, again, as I said, I see them more like Nintendo, so they won't go. I mean, they probably have a branch for that because they're good in technology, but they try to keep it cheap for people. So if it's
That's their front. Is everything's cheap.
sorry.
That's like a front. Like they try and.
Yes, exactly. But
But
they
I'm assuming,
probably,
like, as a mega corporation, they're making like a lot of other things. Like if they're only selling,
yeah, they probably have as well a Nitech branch, which they don't. You have subsidiaries. It's probably one of them because they don't want their high-tech branch to be directly associated with their name, because again, they want their name to be clean and cheap and something attractive to people. But definitely, as long as they're trying to do things cheaper and that kind of stuff, they might have well be very well advanced in the most advanced technology. But I don't.
so are
I
they
don't.
like entertainment, but also are these the guys making cyberware, or is that a different company?
I think. Oh, you mean like Chrome or augmentations?
Right, right.
Because they'll probably do things like the Steam
Neural
Sense, if
implants.
it exists, or
Yeah.
yes, that's the way I see it. But as for Chrome, I mean visible augmentation like
Because
arms
that
and
might
legs. I
explain
don't
it a
think
little too broad.
they won't be number one in this. They would probably going to do that, probably with their brand on it, but they're more like the guy who would focus on the look of the augmentation rather than the efficiency.
Like
So
flash.
Yes.
are they more about the hardware, physical items, or are they also a media company?
I think we're living in a world of where dematerialization is a thing. So I mean, they for good communication because it's the most important things. Probably some stars, mascots, this kind of thing to gain people. But I mean, basically, they sell their own physical stuff, and you buy online the rest.
Okay.
And
I guess the question is, are they a platform or uh, entertainment?
sorry, can you repeat your question?
Are they like a platform for media, or are they media makers themselves? Like, are they cables or HBO? Like,
Good question. I think I don't know, to be honest. They probably
They're
go.
making
No, I
technology,
think
why not?
they're making it on common channels because again they want to be seen by most people. So they can't just go on and do their own channel. I think it wouldn't give them as much visibility as they want to have. So basically, if you're on classic platform, you will have some of their advertising spot.
Let me ask it a different way. Do they own the pipe or the bottle?
No,
Like-
they don't own the pipe.
Okay. So do they? So one, do they provide media? Do they make movies? Do they make? And I'm assuming the answer is yes,
Wait a
because
second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like on the TV, are you watching a Tenoshi show or a
Sorry, I'm back.
Tenoshi TV?
So,
I missed the question. I think.
is I guess I'm mostly trying to figure out like. So it sounds like they are a hardware manufacturer. They do things not necessarily
Yes.
that there are video consoles, but they would create video consoles as well. So they would be like Sony Entertainment, where they're creating a PlayStation and they're creating
Yes.
publishing all the games through it. So they are the publisher as well as the provider, sort of like Nintendo.
Yes.
But do they also do things like Paramount Pictures, where they're doing video and movies?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Obviously.
Okay.
As I said, imagine it like a crossover between Disney and Nintendo.
Okay.
They appeal to the same kind of public. So with Disney, don't forget the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for instance. So every age, but they're very casual, and they don't make people think about anything. It's just about they have fun
Okay.
with something very bored.
So they're entertainment
Um,
media and entertainment hardware.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's their basis.
Got it.
I found their logo could look like that, something looking something this way, and as for a slogan or something, it would be like, if you're not having fun, it's not TYB, for instance, something like that.
Okay.
Like they're trying to talk directly to people. Are you having fun? Yeah, it's because of us.
Mhm.
Hey, that's the whole idea.
Okay, give me 1 second. I will actually get that in here. If you have any other questions, let's go ahead and ask those while I'm pulling this in. Can't find the thing I just.
And I gave them Japanese, Chinese, English name because they, you know how currently we have kind of a trend for Japanese culture and animation and this kind of stuff. I think they as well have something like they have that as well. They have different visuals and they gather it together in some kind of a cultural melting pot. So every people can relate to a part of the culture they're showing.
Anything else? Any questions or anything you want to add on that one?
This is like in Asia, right? Or is it just the culture that's spread out?
That's a good question. I mean, they obviously have people from everywhere, but I can't say where they originate. I haven't thought about that. I would say they're Americans. I mean, yes, they're American, but they probably. I mean, if it was the Disney Nintendo, they would have bought Nintendo.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of Deer Hail. Then Shank, what's yours?
So I've been thinking of a logistics kind of company, and basically they have all the solutions when it comes to protection, land and sea transportation, and maybe they also have like space to control the information on how to run so that the whole logistics operation runs smoothly. So they have up-to-date intel, and basically this would span almost all across Asia. And I'd call them the East Dragon Coalition. Hold on. Right, so these guys are the go-to logistics company when it comes to any operation within Asia. And basically, I would say that Asia became a big conglomerate right now, where China and Southeast Asia would have combined. And yeah, they also have subsidiaries that are kind of in the nature of private military corporations. And that's it so far.
Hmm.
So let me. So East Dragon. Whoops.
Oh, maybe that the government in Asia is not really out of power, you could say. The corporations here don't necessarily have the absolute power. They're still a working government, and corporations go about corporate law legal loopholes rather than going brute force when trying to assert their power. So the corporations here are more cunning than going brute force.
Where is that again?
Basically, there's still a working government in Asia, and
Okay.
that corporations, in order for corporations to have their way, they go for corporate loopholes that would be legal in a sense. So they prefer ways that are cunning than brute force. I'm just speaking of the nature.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Um, so they're based in Asia. What area of Asia is it? More broad or more east, like south, north? Which?
I would say China all the way to all the countries in Southeast Asia.
Okay, so southeast. Got it. Okay. So they're mostly logistical, and are they? So they're more around protection. Do they run a lot of security corps?
Yes, they
Do
have
they?
subsidiaries and maybe partnerships that provide security to their logistics operations.
Sorry, I'm back.
They have subdivisions that provide security, and they control land and sea transportation. How do they control that? Both do they control it from the vehicles, or do they actually like control the what is it?
They have, you could say, they bought like some
Trade.
ports. They have bought some ports by help of government, and they have their own ships and oil tankers or something. And in terms of air, you could say they have big, big machines in the air.
So they own some ports of call, but they don't control all ports.
Yeah,
Okay. Is that one of their goals? Is to gain control over all of the primary transportation hubs, or is that just a side effect of their actual goal?
I guess one of their goal is to expand out of Asia and into maybe the West. Hello.
Yeah.
Uh, One of their goals would be to expand out of Asia and right into the West.
Right. Got it. Okay. Anything else about that, or any questions about that one?
I missed a part of it, but there. The last question. I mean, aren't they in the so-called United States?
Oh no, they're in Asia.
Yeah, like Southeast
So they're
Asia.
not in the same continent as the 13th, for instance.
I had an idea, which is
Okay.
what like they would expand to west, so that's where I come in, or at least interests go together.
Well, they're like all over the world and doing delivery. They're just
What?
based.
Oh, you could say there have been partnerships going on their way in the west, so their operations are starting to expand. Hello?
Uh,
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, we're processing.
Yes, yes.
because I don't see my, what do you call this? Like the indication that my voice is coming out.
Yeah, all of my
It's-
indicators stopped going too. Oh no, my own indicator does, but I see 2 of yours.
So I can't tell if I sent the message.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, Any other questions on East? Do they go by EDC ever, or is it, or what would they go short by?
Yeah,
They
I
call
guess so.
East Dragon,
EDC,
EDC. Okay.
Dragon Cup.
Dragon Core.
Okay. All right, and then sorry. Mine, I'm gonna go with, let's see, I think that's the name of it. I'll do Apex Systems. It's gonna be an AI and robotics corporation. They, where would they be based from? I'm not sure exactly where they're headquartered. I think I'm gonna define that as we go, just based on where you guys base out of. It's probably gonna be somewhere related to that area as one of
If
their
I could hop
core.
in for a second, I was thinking about a location.
Okay.
I was thinking that our sprawl, maybe our cities in the 13 have kind of centralized into one mega city that spans from Boston to Philadelphia along the coast. So that's like quite a spanse.
Boston. Okay. So the 13 literally covers a lot of the area of the original.
Yeah, well,
So,
the 13 is just like a name for the group because of the area and their ideals. But our sprawl, I was thinking, I'm not saying it has to be like this. I was just posing the idea, just like that area, because there's quite a few cities, and the coast could be interesting as well, instead of being like in the middle of the country or something.
Okay. So East Coast. So you're suggesting that we base out of, at least that your group is based out of somewhere East Coast,
Yeah,
which happens to also be jurisdiction of the 13.
right.
Okay, I'm good with that. If everyone else is not got an issue with that, and that doesn't
Fine by
necessarily
me.
mean that's. Go ahead.
Oh, I said fine by me.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right. Then Apex Systems is probably based.
in space.
I'm thinking either California somewhere or like Miami.
Yeah, that could be cool to like introduce different regional things as well.
Yeah.
Some of those
Yeah.
other.
So I think they actually their core was California. So West Coast. They were a West Coast company, kind of northernish, middle north California, but they have a subsidiary location now that's based out of Florida. Down before I forget.
Where is Tenoshi Company's headquarters at?
I said in the United States, but didn't think about where exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably California.
Which one was that?
I was asking about other companies like headquarters locations. I don't
Oh,
know
that
if
was
that's.
TYB you're asking about? Okay.
Yeah.
And they're obviously all over. They're going to have subdivisions in various locations, and if it's ever needs to have something local, there will probably be a local branch of some size almost anywhere you go. That's any major place, but they can have kind of a core, like where they grew from and where their HQ probably still is type thing. So TYB's is probably Cali somewhere, but not necessarily. Okay. All right. So, any questions about Apex Systems?
What do they do? Did you say?
Okay, so it's AI and robotics. So they basically they're heavy into AI research, and most of the AI that's being provided, especially like AI that's running ICE and running security within the Matrix, and AI that is used to pilot autonomous vehicles and manage autonomous security systems, is almost always produced by them. They've pretty much bought out any competitor, and they have the core research. There's always going to be splinter research groups that are trying to sprout up, but none of them can ever get a foothold to really compete. And usually, by the time they get on Apex Systems' radar, they're bought by them. But they also do robotics, so not only they're focusing on the AI itself, but they produce vehicles that are autonomous, as well as they're working towards robotics in various forms. So factory robotics and robotics to handle menial labor of various types, and pretty much anything related to robotics goes through them. They tend to get into a lot of cyberware because they do a lot of prosthetic limbs, and some of the
Uh,
limbs they actually provide AI for, although whether you actually want your arm to have its own brain is different. But most of the AI in prosthetic limbs is more focused around converting your intention into actual action. That level of AI, not necessarily self-aware arms.
I'm assuming they might be like partners or maybe have their own sect or major player in weaponry, like
Almost definitely. They
weapons.
probably don't necessarily. That's not like on their banner, but they absolutely try to corner that market because they know that a major focus of a lot of their a major revenue stream is going to be military AI and hardware. So they're definitely tightly integrated there.
All the big money guys have cyberlink weapons now.
Yes, and yeah, exactly. They definitely tried to corner that. They actually probably own all the technology and IP around cyberlinking and how mechanical things and brain mesh happens. Everything along that. There's probably a pretty major um, connection between them and East Dragon Coalition, because a lot of the logistics that East Dragon Coalition does is likely based around AI managing resource and supply chain management. So probably some interaction there, and probably interaction with a lot of different groups.
Since we're into AI and robotics, are how advanced are they? I mean, in terms of, do we have robots in the streets, for instance? Are we going
There
to? I mean, is it a thing that will happen? Um,
Possibly. So as far as like public knowledge, most of the things they do are still prototype, and it's not like there are autonomous cars. There's autonomous vehicles that you'll probably run into. As far as like a robot walking down the street, that's not as common because they're able to fulfill those at much cheaper. They're able to fulfill those goals much cheaper with just more standard vehicles with AI built in. So their robotics tends to be more around functional than necessarily human analog. But
sure, okay.
they
But
probably do have research divisions that are working on various levels of android type things. They're already doing cyborg work. I mean, they're doing a lot of cyber work with the prosthetic limbs. So clearly, they would probably take that to the next step, do an entire prosthetic body, and try to get an AI into it. But it's probably prototype at this point, and it's not something that's like part
no,
of their revenue stream. It's just part of their research divisions.
so they could have androids like in Alien, but it would be prototype and not known to the public. Whatever happened.
I'm not gonna say they couldn't.
Okay.
They could. As far as you know, they don't.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But yeah. Anything else on that one?
I have a quick off-topic question. How do you feel about personal directives or custom directives, rather, creating your?
Uh, yeah, as long as it fits in generally with the scale of the existing directives, I'm fine with that. So as far as directives, once we get to character creation, they give you 4 in each playbook, but you're free to choose from the full list, or we can to discuss having new ones.
Okay, I was just asking now so I could brainstorm some things.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm perfectly fine with that as long as you get one that fits and isn't like seriously overpowered. All right, so that was step 0. So that will be that kind of helps to define the world quite a bit. Now we've talked through that. I've got a lot of ideas going through on how these things might interact, and we'll figure out as we go what how the world interplays with those. But that definitely helps to kind of cement in what this world looks like. The next step is we need to choose playbooks. Um,
Can we
so
take
there's
a,
what?
can we take a break, like 5 minutes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. 1 o'clock. Yeah, we can do a 5-minute break.
Okay.
If you're going to be sitting here for 5 minutes for any reason, feel free to look through the playbooks and start thinking through. I guess you already know what you're planning.
Yeah, I don't want to say like, hey, I'm playing this, just in case anyone has a shared interest. I don't want to.
Again, we could have more than one hacker, so there's no even if you take it, you could literally all be hackers, and then I would just figure out a way to make a super heavy matrix focused set of
Yeah,
missions.
that'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
Honestly, I like most of the options here, so I don't really. I mean, hacker interests me as well, but I've done that in other games.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm also interested by a lot of different things. I think maybe if everyone feels the same, we could just talk as a group and decide what might work the best, or how we want to operate, what kind of jobs we want to do, and that can help us further decide if not everyone's zeroed in on one playbook. Like I think the soldier is almost like a invaluable class, like with
soldier or hunter.
They're all invaluable, honestly.
yeah,
Yeah.
And
they,
sadly,
they
you're going to have to do without some of them.
all have a lot of glaring strengths. I guess it's just building what we want or what we think is the most fun.
Right. And yeah, we can make any of it work too. So I don't want you to think that we need to have this class or else we're just gonna
Yeah.
never do well. It's basically whatever's fun for you that will work, and we'll find a way to make it work.
Like I think the tech sounds fun. I feel
I'm
like
sure you can buy cyberware even if you're not a hacker,
oh yeah,
like a cyber deck.
right.
Yeah. You're not going to be if you don't have neural implants, you're not going to be nearly as good at it as a hacker. If you do have neural implants, you still won't have the hacker's core moves, so you still won't be as good as a hacker, although you could take hacker moves as an upgrade. So you can have another class that kind of multi-classes into hacker if you needed to fill that goal, or if you just liked those things.
That's one question I had because I really liked the tech, but I wanted to be an effective hacker as well. So on the like you get these moves, and then you can choose ones. As a tech, could I also choose Jack in?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. In fact,
Like, can
Yeah.
we take another playbook's move as our starting option?
no.
Okay. So if I
Generally,
make tech right now, I can't have Jack in until I level up.
let me look really quick at tech. I don't think if you had infiltrator, you definitely could because it's one of the options.
Right. Which is kind of
tech-
interesting that a tech doesn't get that as an option. I think that makes more sense than an infiltrator, but I understand if it's just like a keypad more or something, that I need to get through.
Well, a tech is not so much. An infiltrator is like a hacker who. I think I see why hacker and infiltrators can go into hacker because they're going to infiltrate through matrix means sometimes. A tech is more of a mechanic than a computer tech. So
Gotcha.
a tech is more like gunsmith, armorsmith.
You can take that computer
vehicles.
specification, but the mechanic, I understand.
Well,
I
the
think
computer things are more about remote controlling vehicles than they are about the matrix. Although you can use them for that purpose.
Okay, gotcha.
But that's why. So you get neural interface, which helps you be really good at driving vehicles. But the neural interface doesn't necessarily have the jack-in feature. But you can, as one of your as one of your advances, I think. This doesn't show it. See the advances, but I'm pretty sure one of the early advances is choose a move from another playbook, and you could choose jack-in.
Right.
But not out the gate.
I guess I saw the infiltrator just like as a rogue, because all I've ever played is D&D. I was like, oh, this is the rogue class, you know?
Sort of. It's an assassin. It can be as an assassin, but it can also be a person who like it could be almost a hacker who you use to get your group into situations.
Right.
So they could be a hacker who's really focused on just getting in and out as opposed to bypassing systems or really taking control of them.
Right.
But you can kind of yeah, you can
Everything seems really versatile either way. So
exactly. Yeah.
or versatile later on when you get your advances, you can build whatever you want.
Right. But yeah, so the tech, yeah, tech is more mechanic, more tinker than hacker. Infiltrator is, like you said, kind of roguish. You could actually build an infiltrator a lot of different ways. I played an infiltrator that was almost like samurai assassin, but then I played another one that was entirely different. I took a different set of moves and it played like a different class almost.
Right.
But I
What
think
are
these
the sprawl cards for? I thought that was interesting.
Oh, I just threw those in. Let's see. You can choose. So if you mark over them and choose, they have things like gear, intel, +1, -1. So it's just you can kind of take them and throw them into a character slot, like down. I just threw one into the bottom to remind you that you have a gear that you can use.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you
Gotcha.
haven't done this, so you don't know what gear is, do you?
No.
Okay.
I
So there's two abstract concepts, and I'll probably go over this again once other people get in. But
from my understanding, it's like, oh, like for this situation, like because I saw the soldier played, it's like you have that piece of gear when you need it. Like it's a broad term, like it's not
yep,
planning, it's doing. So like you kind of retcon it in a way, and you're like, oh well, you had the hold one gear, so you actually have that grappling.
exactly. It's like it's a it's a retcon type thing, which lets you realize that your characters are smarter than you are when it comes to doing this stuff.
Right.
So they would have thought ahead to bring this, even though you didn't. And yeah, so
It
gear
saves us
you
all
you earn
hours of
in
time as well,
what?
and it saves us all hours of time as well.
Yes, yeah,
You're not talking to that shopkeeper going through like, I need 3 health potions and
yeah. You might still be doing that actually, because you don't just buy gear. It's not that you just have a pack full of gear. Like in I don't know. Did you have you played Dungeon World?
no.
Okay, I can't
All I've ever
remember.
played tabletop wise is 5e
Okay,
and like
then never
a couple
mind.
sessions
Well,
of
in
that.
5e even, there's like an adventure pack, and you can just assume that you have rope in there, and you can assume that you have some basic stuff. It's
Right.
similar, but you still have to get specific things. Gear is something that you get from a move. Like if you're an infiltrator and you break in somewhere, at the end of your break-in, you get a gear if you took a cat burglar, which represents you being able to steal something as you're in there, or as a tech you might get gear when you do a mechanical move that represents something you remembered to pick up or be ready in some way. And then later, when you're in a mission and you need something specific, something that you could have gotten in context of that gear, you can convert the gear into that item as long as the item is worth like 1 or 2 cred.
Right.
Um, but
Well, that
it's
to
not
my
like all you carry is gear, because you do still carry the specific things. You carry
right.
not really health potions exactly, but if
Yeah.
you had something that filled that need, like health medical kits, you would carry um, specific gear for bandaging if you wanted to do that, which would give you a +1 to first aid rolls.
That might kind of relate to my custom directive, which if I play a hacker, I wanted it to be. I got interested by this pay data thing.
Hmm.
Like I read, like if you hire a low-level hacker, he's going to be spending time searching for something on the side for him to get. So my
Hmm.
personal directive was kind of going to be like that. Like when you're hacking, if you get pay data during a mission, take experience sort of thing, because that
There
also.
actually is one of those. It's basically
Oh,
if you take if you during a mission, if trying to gain reputation or money, I have to read it to actually get it. But if trying to get this money puts the mission in jeopardy or hinders the mission in any way, gain experience.
Right.
So
That was my hindrance in mind. So it sounds like I just didn't see that one because I was looking at the older versions.
yeah, let me
I was
see
looking
where
at that
directives
0.2
are.
version. Yeah, so like that's one thing my character's probably always going to be doing if he's a hacker is
Right. Which will be frustrating, but also good at the same time, because
right.
money would be good to come by, but it's also bad when you're constantly like getting in the way of the mission because of it,
Those are
which is
the things
awesome.
that make the game fun. You know,
Yeah,
putting
yeah, no,
putting the group in a pickle and those sorts of situations are always interesting. And everyone's going to have their own version of that too. So
yeah, and I am totally behind that. So when I say annoying, I mean annoying in a good way.
right, right.
Right.
I'm back.
Okay.
Got some ice cream.
No, eggs.
Oh, oh, is it morning over there where you're at?
Yeah.
Oh, lucky guy.
All right. I'm gonna put directives here. In fact, here's a copy. So unfortunately, this is a table, which is making this tricky. But on page 143 is a list of all the pre-made personal objectives, and one of those I think fits you perfectly. Where is it? Financial. When you hinder the mission for a chance at extra profit, mark experience.
Yeah, that sums it up pretty perfectly. I'd say.
Yeah.
Start making some decisions on the playbook.
Okay, so I guess I'm not going to paste that in like I hoped, but that's fine. All right, so are we all here, or is Shank still out?
I'm here.
Okay. All right, so the playbooks, I have those up with a description of what each one is. Do all of you have an idea what you might want? Or did some of you need to look through these still?
I'd kind of like to hear what everyone else decides on before I completely decide. I'm obviously interested in hacker, but I could play just about anything at this point.
I'm either a hunter, infiltrator, or a killer.
Cool. So you're the damage.
Maybe depends.
Well, infiltrator could be anything, but hunter.
Yeah,
Killer.
infiltrator doesn't have to be damage. It definitely could be just, yeah, it can be a lot of other things. So here's the playbooks.
Thanks.
Let's see.
Doing bad things there.
I like the pusher, to be honest.
Pusher?
Yes.
Okay. Alright. Put the playbooks that you're interested in, like type them into the box below. I don't know who's who. Let's see.
Into the chat.
No. At the bottom, like if you scroll down in the main window, there's four boxes that say char 1, char 1, char 1, char 1.
Yeah, why don't we just go by the chat bubble? So Hale would be the left one, Shank is second, I'm third, and Adir's.
Well, we could do that, except I don't think it's the same order for everybody.
Oh, it's like bound to something.
Yeah, I don't know how
Oh,
it's ordered, but
gotcha.
I'm gonna change char 1 to that name. So
And I'm thinking about being the killer if no one objects.
Then I'm either down to infiltrator or hunter.
if I go hacker Shank and you're an infiltrator, that might we might be able to work together effectively in some ways.
Yeah, like I don't have to pick the deck anymore.
If I go pusher, I'm going to need the hacker as well to dig up dirt on corporations and stuff.
That sounds good. Okay, I'll just decide on hacker then. It sounds like
But
a good.
to me, it depends on what kind of missions we want to know to do. Because
Awesome,
if
yeah.
I'm play pusher, I'm basically going to screw over corporation, and it will be dangerous for all of us, I guess.
Well, as a pusher, what would your ideologies be?
Probably something like an anarchist, but like the the basic one.
So, I mean, are you trying to like be more of a reporter side? Like when you said dig up dirt, like does your character just want to expose it, or when you want to fuck them
Yes.
over, like are you down to like rob a corporation with us as well? You know?
Not only the media thing, definitely not. But
That's more like a personal thing for you.
yeah, I think it's ideology for the character. So
Right.
it's awakening people's mind. So it could obviously be by media, but not generic media, of course. But he could probably like have a forum or something.
So yeah, you'll have to define a vision, and that vision will be what defines when your moves get triggered. So we'll have to. Uh,
Yeah, you could take some reporter moves later down the road if you get into it.
I'm not sure because I don't know if he would be like I mean, if you're doing like terrorism, you're not reporting exactly thing, and he is going to be like in between both of those.
Okay.
But again, I'm asking the group as a whole because if we're going to take a lot of jobs for corporations, my character might screw some of them up, or I mean, he's not in the right mindset to do that. So I can play something else, really.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to either. I think it would be cool to take. Well, the thing is, like about this game is who has enough money to pay us to work against the
Yes.
corporations? Only another corporation, you know. So
Yeah.
that's something that I feel like. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but you're kind of stuck to in a way. Like
Well,
if you feel like you don't want to work for the corporations, I feel like we're
It's not
the
that
majority of the
I
time
mean,
going to be working for a corporation.
I mean, the idea is, I mean, it's a character I mean, he knows where the money comes from, but he might try to screw over the employers or at least dig up more dirt on the job.
well, they're going to be trying to do that to you anyway, so that's kind of just an implied. That's a two-way street. So
But I mean, for instance, if we're working for a corporation against another corporation, my character is probably going to do more against the corporation that is asked to, just to have more things to expose, for instance. I mean, if he can, or maybe do something stupid like blow up a research center or something. And for
Yeah,
instance, if
I
we
mean
have to
that sounds
retrieve
like
data,
that sounds like a job all in itself. I mean, I'm not going to tell you like how to play your character or because I mean, I was just saying to James like that the things that get us in trouble are the things that make the game fun at the end of the day. So you know, like if you want to be a loose cannon, then go for it.
I mean, for
in
instance,
worst
if we have,
case, that character
if
dies
we,
because you just pissed off too many
yes,
corporations.
Also that.
I mean, if we have, for instance, data to retrieve from somewhere, I could go retrieve the data and maybe burn the place out if it's not something
You're just saying you would
we've
take
been
that
strictly
extra step.
forbidden to do.
What would your vision be?
Uh, a perfect world in which everybody go outside and hunt things, for instance, like total goes back to wilderness and natural state, this kind of thing.
So anti-technology, like getting away from the state that we're in, going back to more naturalistic.
Technology is okay, but it shouldn't be controlled by anyone else, and people should have fun in the world as natural.
You want to be off grid, but you need me to help you tap into the grid to destroy the grid.
Exactly.
Oh, this is all messed up.
Again,
you
if you
hate the game,
think
but
it's
you have to play the game to kill the game.
Exactly.
Right.
But if you think it's a bad idea, I can play something else ready.
The worst
Because I
ideas
think
are
it's
usually the
going
best
to give
ideas.
us trouble.
It is a terrible idea, but that's usually the best
Yes,
thing. So I'm definitely not going to say no to that. If anyone else, I'm not going to say you're going to get along the best with either the group. Maybe you'll get along with the group fine, but you might not get along
No,
the
but
best
I mean,
with the.
if someone has the, let's say, stereotypical cyberpunk mindset with a character like Descartes or Blade Runner, he wouldn't side with an anarchist pusher. So if someone wants to play this kind of character, I'll change mine, definitely.
Or find a good reason why you guys would be working together. And there might be a lot of friction between those two. There could be a lot of interfering because players can definitely interfere with other players. So
I don't know if my character would get along the best with that character. Backstory wise, like I said, he's majority Chinese. I'm trying to figure out how to post a picture, but I can't do it. I have it saved on my computer.
if you just drag, if you have a local picture, if you drag it over the screen, the Chrome window.
I don't think it works for players.
Yeah, it might not. I know it works for me, but it might not work.
You have to upload it and give the link.
Okay, so that only works. It's a GM only thing. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. So maybe if I had a character sheet, I could just put it into that. But anyway,
you could Google search that image and then post a link to the image if it found one.
Right.
Go there, upload the image, and give us the link thereafter.
Okay. So he's a younger Chinese male, and his street name is the Trash Man. His name is Xing Jie Gong, which in Chinese, of course, is the Trash Man. And so his dad was a like a sanitation worker, and that's kind of just he was a very lowly person, and that's just what everyone called him. That wasn't his name. It was kind of like a like, oh, trash man, do this. And so he kind of took that on. His dad was always really proud of it and his hard work ethic. But Trash Man kind of saw through all of that, and he started, of course, digging through the trash, finding different components that had been thrown away, old models by all of these corporations that have just put all of their waste into the city where he had lived. And he started building his own cyber components and built his first POS cyber deck at a very young age, and has just been experimenting with all of the things that he's been digging up. And so I see him as I was thinking maybe taking the directive where he's like he has some sort of bond to his father, like with the respect that he has for him. And he's of course kind of just accepted the world is the way it is. I'm just a sanitation worker. This is all I really do. So I kind of see him as a little bit good-moraled, even though he's working against all of these corporations. I don't know how anarchist he would get. Maybe your character could change his mind. The only way to get rid of all of this, like look at all the things that your dad has been put through. The only way is to blow up these corporations, take them out. But for right now, he's probably a little naive, even though just being kind of awokened and wanting to do something about all of this.
And for the
I'll
record,
flesh out
I think
the
on
back.
if you edit the sheet I just pasted to you, you probably can actually put an image straight into that as an
Yeah,
avatar.
I'm doing that right now. Just give me 1 second, and I'll share a photo of him. What's the kid's name from the Goonies? The little tech kid. I can't remember. He looks like a grown-up version of him. It's really funny. So I'll put his. I don't know how you want that set up. Like real name, street name, real name.
1 second. See, so as far as name, whatever he goes by most of the time, and then in parentheses his actual name. However you want to do it. I'll probably figure out which one is real and which one is street.
I just don't know how to share that to everyone, but I have his picture and name all set up.
So right now you can't share that to everyone, but
Yeah.
is
Take the picture and drag it over there since I can't. I didn't get to the image BB because I got a little distracted with my backstory there. So yeah, I'm not saying don't play this character. I'm just saying, like social, like party-wise, like the mechanics might not all be there. I don't know how extremist I'm gonna be just yet.
I'm already thinking of another character, which I might like. So
Yeah, I wasn't trying to sway you. Like, definitely
keep,
do what you think is the most fun. I think at this point.
I mean, conflicts are good, guys.
Yeah, definitely. That's what this game is all about. It seems like.
yeah.
No, but I mean, I can come up with other characters with.
All right.
That's not a problem. Just keep going with the other characters, and maybe I change my mind later or not.
I can go.
Okay. So wait, that was kind. And what was your? Let's go ahead. So have you all actually decided on a playbook? It sounds like other than the pusher maybe being something else, you're all there's no conflicts with. So really quick,
Yeah.
what just give me instead of going with a full description of the character, just what playbooks are you interested in?
Sorry.
But I'm wanting to play the killer, but we
Okay. So I'm
killed
gonna
it.
put.
I got a little carried away, I guess.
Well, you're right where we're gonna be in a few seconds anyway. But okay, so killer for a deer. Khan was hacker. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, Shank. What playbook were you most interested in?
I think I'm going for the infiltrator.
Okay. And then Hail, or is it Hail?
As you wish. I said pusher, but I'm thinking about driver as well.
Okay. So then we have hacker, infiltrator, killer, and either pusher or driver as a possible first run. So we've got killer, definitely. It's heavy tech or heavy cyber guy who just commits violence. Hacker, that's kind of obvious what that is. Infiltrator, that could be a lot of things, but it's getting into secure places, so that's usually really useful in jobs. And pusher and driver, both would be useful in different ways. Pusher was more interesting than useful necessarily. They're very flexible, so they could kind of be built all kinds of ways.
Yes, that's the issue I have with driver. I mean, I have some ideas of character and stuff, but I'm afraid he would fall a little off short on doing things actually aside from driving.
Well, the people who were coming to hire
the
you would
time.
know your group makeup, and they would know you
Yeah.
had a driver, and that would be something that you would be known for. So it would definitely come in handy. Plus, the driver is good even outside of the vehicles. Just as a person with a gun, they can be very effective. But then when you involve drones and/or vehicles at the same time,
that's what I was looking right now about the drones. I don't know.
With that setup, we sound like bank robbers.
That
which might not be
Yeah.
too far from
Yes.
I'll
What
take
you
that
essentially
first.
do.
Actually, the idea of being bank robbers or this kind of thing make me want to play driver even more because of
I mean,
the
really,
concept I'm currently
in
thinking
most
about.
cases, megacorps are going to be hiring people to do deniable work that they want to do to hurt their competition without necessarily being implicated in it, and that's not that much different than bank robbery. So,
Allegedly.
right.
Let's go with driver. Okay, I'll say driver.
Okay. Yeah, either's fine. So I mean, if you really wanted to do pusher, that's cool too. I've never
It's going to be
run through
driver.
the. Okay, driver. All right. So hacker, infiltrator, killer, driver. All right. So then open the sheets that you have and put that in as your. Yeah, in the character sheet, you've got name, so just fill in name.
It's a movie about a getaway driver who's a bank robber. You can find it online. It
Okay.
might make you excited.
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
Pretty cool.
Directed
Oh,
by
it's
Edgar
great.
Wright, so it might be good.
So good.
Sorry.
URL. Is that for my character?
What?
At the top of the sheet, it says image URL. Do I put my character URL there? Where it says broadcast? If I do that, yeah, it's not broadcast.
Yes, that's an image of. Yeah, that's an image of your character.
Yes, but if you have the image and your yes, it works.
There it goes. That's looking pretty cool.
Okay, I like this feature.
That's an. Oh, that's the driver.
Yes.
Now, is that tattooing or is that just face paint?
It's face paint.
Or okay. So next steps, we are going to name and then describe your character. So you'll choose a handle or street name for your character and describe their look. Each character has a number of options to choose from for each of eyes, face, body, skin, and wear. These help establish the tone of the sprawl and the individual playbooks, but are intended to be inspirational, not exhaustive, meaning you should feel free to create your own name, riff on the names provided, or select from the list provided as they wish. Same applies to the list of looks and backgrounds. So you're not limited by the looks and backgrounds and everything in there, but they give you examples that you can start from. So give your character an affectation, an aspect, or personal style that sets you apart from all the other badasses with their hard eyes and nondescript face. Do you have a distinctive tattoos, synth skin, or hair, or cosmetic implants? Do you wear a uniform or particular piece of clothing? Perhaps your gear is covered with corporate logos? Are you always chewing on bullets? Do your cyber eyes display an external sports ticker? Things like that. So once we've done that, let me know. And you can go ahead and put your name in the box at the bottom if you know how to do that.
Hmm.
that's a good way to do it, like Matthew Whisper Tan. So I assume that in general on the street he goes by Whisper. That how that works?
How did he
Yep.
do that?
I had to figure it out. There's some tools on the top left, and
Oh,
you'll
how do you
find
put
like
text in?
text.
Yeah, the
Oh
third
yes,
no,
the text thingy.
yeah, the third box from the left. No, second for you. The second box down the I. If you mouse over it, text is one of those options.
So in the Matrix, am I rolling mind or am I rolling synth?
Synth in general, plus the power of your deck, I think. But there's times where you might have a move that says instead of rolling synth, roll something else.
Right.
In fact, your neural implant and jack in might allow you to roll mind instead of synth for certain moves.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out which one I would be doing more. I think it might be mind.
So the playbook tells you the suggestion for what you should. Let's see, for
Yeah,
hacker,
it
it's
says mind and synth should be +2 or +1. It doesn't give
right.
a preference. So I think I'm
Yeah.
gonna.
So it kind of depends on your initial move. Let's see. After 8 matrix moves. So most matrix moves are synth, like login is synth, compromise security is mind, manipulate systems is synth, melt ice is edge, jack out is cool. That's the main matrix moves actually.
Yeah,
So
that's one
synth
thing that I
is
thought was interesting is that it's kind of spread, like basically everything but style.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I think you kind of like mind is also you'll use mind for research, and
Right.
you'll use assess to do like matrix scouting. But login, like that's the first thing you'll do in a lot of cases, and that will define what you do from that point forward, and that's synth. So one of the first interactions you're going to have is going to rely on synth.
I thought what wasn't console cowboy. Oh, I have to log in before I can console cowboy, huh?
Let's see, console
'Cause it says if you
cowboy.
connect to a secure system, roll mine. Not like roll mine to log into a secure system. It sounds like that prefaces console cowboy.
Reading this.
Yeah, I mean, with how much content is given to hacking in the Matrix, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So you would roll synth to log in, and once you've connected, then you roll mind to get those holds,
Okay.
which give you the ability to do other things. But you'll have to use synth first. Correct. And like if you use rep, when you appear in the matrix with a recognizable avatar, roll synth instead of style for fast talk, and instead of edge for play hardball. So that's a case where you have a move that actually has you roll synth instead of the other things.
Right.
And tech support, you roll mind instead of links when you help someone and you're jacked in to the matrix. So yeah, it kind of depends on what moves you choose to use, but they are spread across a number of things.
Right.
But I think synth is important for getting in the first place, for sure. And mind is pretty important after that.
That's tough. Once I level up, I can bring one up.
Synth could also help with certain cyberware, but mind can help outside of the matrix probably more than synth in general. But there's going to be times where you're trying to interface with technology. It really depends. It's your guys. Are you smarter just in general about general knowledge and things, or would he be
I
just really
mentioned that
good with tech?
he's gonna have like saved and scrapped, but aside from that, more so like built it himself. So I would say that he's probably more smart to be able to build these things, and then his synth is lower because he's just kind of using them.
Okay,
Uh,
and that
so
could be. But it could just be just as easy that he's so good at tech that he was able to scrap this stuff together and make use of it. So I could see the same thing going the other way, but whichever way you want to justify it, yeah. Just sure. Does that Xingji Gong?
Jing Jae Gong.
How did you say it?
I typed it like an easy way to say it in there. It's not all stylized. Ching Jae Gong.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I said. Good.
Yeah.
Xingji Gong.
Close enough.
I studied in China for about 6 months, so I'm probably a little more particular about the enunciations, I suppose.
Yeah.
Come on, James, you don't know Mandarin?
Actually, Cantonese.
Oh, okay.
Not I don't know it, but I do I've done kung fu for like 20 years, and I've spent time in China with
Okay.
a Grandmaster Sifu there, but enough to where I understand like fighting related terminology and some basic things that I just needed to know to be respectful. But
Right.
yeah,
Right, sure.
I'm not gonna come even close to carrying on a conversation, but I can read pinyin usually, generally well.
Yeah, I did ceramics over there, so I like it's the same with all the ceramics terms.
Mm. That's cool though. Yeah, it's an interesting. What area did you
It
go to?
was in the Jiangxi province, which is like, from what I'm told, like the equivalent of the deep south here. So like all of the words that I was learning, like when I went to Beijing, their pronunciations weren't the same. Even just saying hello, they were like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, you
Just,
write it, it's all the same, but then when you say it, it's like, that's a different language. Nope, dialect. Yeah,
I
whatever.
just learned with a heavy accent, apparently.
Mm. All right, are we still working on this?
Yeah, I'm choosing my other
Okay.
move
I just wanted to
here.
make sure that
I'm at the beginning, kinda, but I'm still here.
okay.
I'm more.
What would be an inaccessible partition? I mean, I don't get the difference between encrypted and inaccessible partition.
Well, if you are so inaccessible partition is like you've got a section that's just walled off and completely separated. So even if someone hacked into your cyberware or into something, they couldn't get into that partition. So you could store things in there that were completely isolated and safe from hacking. Whereas encrypted means that when you're communicating, that communication channel with something outside is encrypted. Or if it's a data store, the data that's stored into it is encrypted, so someone can access it, but they have to decrypt it to make use of it.
Okay.
So
I'll choose
encrypted is
that.
probably more convenient but less secure, whereas inaccessible partition is more secure but less convenient.
But I'm not sure I need the inaccessible partition as well. I'm thinking about it.
There's times where it might be useful, and other than that, it doesn't matter. But the times that it's useful, you'll wish you had it.
Yes, sure. I'll choose it. I mean, I'll do the rest of the characters and I'll go back to it.
Okay. Yeah, right now it's pretty much just looks. I mean, we're only doing the looks and name.
That's what I did already.
Okay, so we can go through that, because the next step is actually going through and picking the other more detail. So first is name and describe, but then it's assign stats, and then we'll choose cyberware. We'll go through all that. Choose cyberware and choose the playbook moves and choose gear. Then consider backgrounds and contacts. And
Oh yes, we're in the the stats. Okay, I have no idea, but I think it's somewhere. Okay, cool should be +2.
but first thing I want to do is just name and describe your character to everyone else, and that might define the rest of the choices. But then the other things we can just go through and do them all at once. So if you do, you all have a name and general description.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go from left to right based on the bottom thing. So, Trashman, describe yourself.
So let me pull up my sheet again here. Trashman has smug-looking eyes. He's very young, but he looks like he knows more than you. He's also very young, maybe like early 20s. Skinny, kind of wiry body, with unnecessary utility wear and cool things that he's made and scavenged on himself. Like, I think my picture has some grenades on it. Like, he would definitely just be sporting strange stuff that he's crafted or found. For skin, I was a little confused. I just put Asian because he's a Chinese guy.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, okay, that's Asian.
His cyber deck, I'm finding a picture of it, but I would like something that, like, kind of right on his arm, it has like an implant, but with pieces that kind of fold out and go onto his palm, and then I don't know if he could have like a hologram that he kind of interacts with. That was my thought. I don't know how cyber decks look in your world, so I guess I'm kind of curious about that.
How
as well.
do cyber decks look in our world?
Well,
You're the
I mean,
hacker. What do you want them to look like?
his is different because he's the trash man. It's something that he pieced together and made himself. So probably even if it hurt or was dangerous, he would have had it implanted into his arm. And then his has 5 little prongs that fold out onto his fingertips and display a hologram that he can interact with on his other hand.
Is it visible just to him, or can anyone see that hologram?
He can decide. He can interact with it just with himself because I think hackers get specific goggles that kind of give them like poor man's cyber eyes. So maybe he could have like a mode where only he can see what he's doing.
So is he
maybe
wearing glasses or goggles?
Yeah,
generally?
he would have kind of round circular goggles on. We'll just have.
Are they really like awkward looking? Like really?
Yeah, they're way too big, and you can see through the really thick glass some green text always going by.
If you're having a conversation with him and he's not on his deck, is he going to be wearing those still, or will he pull them up as you're talking?
He can. I would say that it's something that it's almost something you'll always see him in, but he does take them off. Maybe more so his goggles might be glasses, because I like the glasses in his picture and just kind of like the nerd aspect that adds to his character. So maybe the same thing. He just has some enhanced glasses that he's made that are, of course he can't escape the ads that are being displayed. No one can. Maybe he can stop them for a bit with his hacking, but yeah, kind of like some green matrix text that's scrolling through his glasses.
I liked the visualization of just the awkward goggles as his normal glasses that he pieced together himself, and they just like he's always.
Yeah, I think that his glasses would have some thick,
Okay.
dorky glass to make his eyes look really big.
So it's not as awkward as it could be, but he doesn't look like he's just totally into tech and a freak, but he does
Yeah.
have thick glasses that also look kind of
He
techy.
he
Okay.
still tries to be cool, but his style is -1, so he's very not cool.
Right.
Well, I guess the cool skill implies something different, but style-wise.
Yeah, I knew what you meant when you said cool. So
Yeah.
so he has low style, but that could mean that he's really awkward in conversation or something. That can mean a lot of things, but for him, it's just because he's generally.
I guess I'll
awkward.
figure it out as I start playing him.
Yeah.
That's just how he looks for now.
Okay, got it. Okay. Shank, or I should say Whisper.
Alright, so my character is gonna be Asian. He's a Chinese businessman from not business. He works for a Chinese corporation across in Asia, and I'm not sure if you can see this. I can't find any other picture, so I'll use this.
Can you drag that picture into your bio and info on your character sheet?
Yes, I did. Do you see it on the right side of the chat?
I do. I just want to have it in your character sheet so I can drag it out.
Oh yeah, it's in my character sheet, the one with the image URL.
Right.
Oh, bio
but,
and info.
Yeah.
Hold
If you
up.
upload it there, I'll have access to it as an actual token that I can use. And anyone else who has a picture, if you could do the same. So again, if you edit your character sheet, the first tab, actually if you just edit it, there's an avatar and a default token. You could fill in both of those. You can just drag an image or
We
choose a
just
file.
lost someone.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
That would
We
be
lost
Shank.
Chang.
I think he I know what happened. He accidentally opened an image in this browser window, I think.
Yep.
Oh
that's
yes,
what happened.
that's what happens when you drag it.
Yeah,
I don't
you
think
have
we
to.
can drag it ourselves.
You can drag it on. So if you edit the sheet, there's a spot that says
From the
drop a
character
file.
sheet?
Uh-huh. Not from the character sheet tab, but if you actually edit the character sheet from your journal.
Oh yes, I know. I got it. Did it
Yeah.
already
Well,
several times.
alright. Whoops. Yeah, I'm still kind of new to Roll20, so.
That's fine.
Sorry, be right back in a sec.
I still occasionally accidentally push the back button and lose the entire setup, so I'm used to that.
I just linked the URL because I don't know my way around.
Yeah, okay. I can't do it though. You need to do it.
Sorry.
So if in the journal you see your character sheet, if you double click it, at the top there's an edit button.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
I can't resize it, I think.
I can resize it and move it around.
I'm
if you
pretty
want.
sure you're the only one who can do that.
Alright, I think I get it.
Yes, and now you actually have an image too, which is perfect. Okay, so now I can take this and I can drag this here.
You look kind of the same now.
Yeah, similar. One of you just looks a little bit more professional than the other. Well, I guess it depends on what your profession is, actually. All right, and Adir, did you have an image or not yet? Not at all.
I'm looking for one that I just can't find.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, you don't have to have one, but it's useful during this part especially.
I had something too specific in mind, so having
Okay.
some trouble.
All right, so Whisper, you're playing Infiltrator, and go ahead. I don't know if you actually got anywhere a second ago.
In terms of looks, that's pretty much my image. I'm kind of low key. Like you could easily confuse me for someone else. It's part of my trait. So I'm not always something that stands out. It's part of my job as an infiltrator. I don't prefer to stand out too if I have an option. And for the most part, since I'd say, can I work for the company that I placed?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm an infiltrator. I work for East Dragon Coalition, and part of their vision is to expand to the west. And as an infiltrator, they're gonna need someone like me, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm in the west, trying to do some corporate sabotages and stuff, keeping it cunning.
Okay.
As to cyberware, I have nothing standing out that's obvious. I have cyber ears. Basically, it's like it looks organic, but it's cyber ear.
Okay, so you have cyber ears, but it's not obvious.
Yes.
Okay. It might actually even be an embedded thing, so it's not the ear itself, but it's the functionality within. Okay. Adir. No.
Yeah.
What is your name?
Me?
Yes. Do you have a name?
Yeah. My character name is Razor. He was built in a vat. He's basically made. I think he is a part of a product line, like sort of synthetic bodyguards or something along those lines. His cyberware is more either he grew around it or it's more like a bio augmentation. He has synthetic nerves and muscle grafts. Mostly focusing on melee combat, surprisingly. Yeah. As a story, I'm not super sure about, but at some point he got away from his owners or something like that. With at large.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to have the full backstory yet. This is more just about looks and name. Okay.
So he has the synthetic eyes, a friendly face, a leafy body, he wears streetwears, and his skin is artificial. Something about him just is alien. It's hard to put a finger on it.
So kind of like an uncanny valley type feel,
Yeah.
or is it more just the way he moves?
I mean, all of it. Something is off about him, and something is not human about him.
Got it. All right. Charan.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it's me. It's my character.
Yes.
So,
I was waiting to see if it would click.
sorry.
You have to get used to that
He
name
goes
because
by-
soon that's all I'm going to be referring to you as.
Yes, no. I just I need time to let it sink.
Yep.
So he goes by the name Karen. Karen.
Charan. Got it.
That's why. And when people ask him his real name. He just say just Karen. So he looks pretty much like my picture. So he's American. He's from a former gang. He was from a gang, not anymore. And well, he looks kinda cold. He has this cold looking and this death appearance. He wears a cross as well. Just, I mean, he's kinda doing a myth with his character, and it's not sure if how serious he is about his philosophy of life and this kind of stuff. Uh, he calls his car the boat, and in his opinion, when people get into his car, they're doing a journey to the land of the dead. And people who are crazy enough to take on the journey, he asks them to pay him. So most people just give him 1 cent and go and don't care. It's because it's to save their soul, obviously. So he's this kind of crazy guy, early 20s. So the face is bleached, so it's permanent, but the black parts are makeup. And yes, he has this cold appearance, cold. I mean, he creepy. He's kinda creepy, but if you get to know him, he might be kinda cool. Like he would go to parties and do stuff. He's not just about his nihilistic philosophy of death, but that's how he wants people to look at him.
Is his name just metaphorical and his beliefs metaphorical, or does he actually feel like he is like
Um,
ferrying the dead across the river Styx or something?
I mean, he's probably not a real expert in mythology whatsoever. So no, he doesn't think he's the reincarnation of Karen, but he
Okay.
still defines himself as. I put it in my notes already. He describes himself as an undead already,
Okay. Interesting.
and
All right.
wants people to accept it as well. We're all undead, finally. He
Sounds like
just
given the
live
way
a
he's
little
driving,
bit
he
more.
is dead. Just the question is when.
People are usually not very comfortable entering into his car, but they they all survived with a cent less. But
All right. Okay. So next steps. Let's go ahead and finish the rest. So assign stats. I think most of you actually have already stepped ahead, but assign stats. You should have a +2, 2+1s, 1 -1, and 2 +0s. Choose cyberware. So when you choose cyberware, this is something all of you are going to get one piece of cyberware by default. Plus your moves might give you another, but you'll get one. And when you each one that you get, both the one you get and any you get that are extra, you need to answer the question: why did you get part of your body cut out and replaced with electronics? Like you can choose it being. I think this is on all the character sheets, right? Or all the playbooks. The reasons like
Mm,
it's in the playbook.
prosthetic,
Yeah.
prosthetic, forced loyalty, enthusiasm, necessity, junkie, genetics, career, ideology, memory, or military. But that list is in the playbooks.
And that's
I don't
for
think
extra
so.
ones. I don't see that, but is that for the ones we get just regularly?
Yes. Yeah, you got cyberware installed and it got installed. Someone paid for it, so this is defining how it got paid for and why you did it. And that needs to be happen for every piece of cyberware that you have. And everyone will get one, and then certain classes will probably get a second, or maybe even a third in a couple cases. And each of those will have both a reason as well as a cost. And the cost, like how did you afford to have someone cut out part of your body and replace it with electronics? And you've got to choose one of these. You either script and save to buy it yourself, in which case you apply uh, one of these negative tags to it. It's either unreliable, substandard, hardware decay, or damaging. Or someone else paid for it and you owe them, so you're owned. Or just you screwed someone else over to get it, and now you're hunted, probably by them, because you describe who you double crossed. And yeah, that's for each piece of cyberware that you have.
No.
And sometimes
Cyber
if you're
deck.
if you're owned, you can be owned by multiple. You can be owned by the same group multiple times, but if you're using hunted, you shouldn't use hunted for the same group twice if you happen to be in that situation.
It kind of doesn't make sense then for me because I get two cyber whales at the beginning, like at creation, and like my concept is that like he was built with them in, so I was going for hunted on the same guy that made him basically.
That means you're owned then.
I mean, maybe
Right.
you
No,
can be
because-
owned and hunted by the same group.
So they
Where are
own
the-
and hunt me at the same time. All right.
Yeah, own just means that like when it was put in, they probably put trackers in, or they put some sort of backdoor to where they could access it and cause malfunction, or there's some negative effect because they paid for it and they probably did something you aren't aware of to keep some control over you as an asset, and so maybe you're able to be tracked or something. And then
So I'm both.
hunted means they're actively trying to do something against you.
I'm both owned and hunted.
Is there a list of those downsides? I would say.
Yes.
Because I don't have it with my cyberware, but maybe it goes.
Let me
Maybe
find
it's
it.
later in the sheet with the car, maybe.
Yeah. So
Because my cyberware is very basic. It's a neural interface, so.
what's one of them that you wanted to know about? The
Sorry?
cyber. So like damaging.
The downside, like we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. So, do you mean the downside of which downsides do you mean? Because there's the downside where you got it cheap to where it could be
Yeah.
damaging or
Yes, but where is there a list of those things?
yes, cyberware tags on page 123 of the
Thanks.
core book.
Okay,
We
so
have to choose one for every piece of cyberware.
Well, you actually have to if you choose that you scrimped and saved, you need to choose one of those 4 in that list.
and
100.
what
Sorry.
page
Yes.
was that on? Because all of mine are scrimpted and saved because he's made them himself. So it's
Right.
imaging, hardware decay, unreliable.
Yeah, it's 123, but just to summarize, damaging, sometimes it hurts like hell, and eventually it will do permanent nerve damage. The hardware decay, it works now, but it's just a matter of time. Other one. Substandard means it works, but not as well as it should, and unreliable means sometimes it doesn't work.
Thank you.
And specifically what that means is going to vary. It's just those are going to be things that I can use against you at times in moves.
So is a cyber deck? Well, I just answered my own question. Is a cyber deck cyberware? That is what I would think low tech cyberware would look like an implant like that. It's just kind of crude and a little bit more meaty and not as hidden.
Yeah, sort of like Ghost in the Shell, where the old style people had really obvious implants and they were kind of stuck with that, but newer and Deus Ex, in fact, similar.
Right.
But yeah, the older stuff and the cheaper stuff is really that obvious and not as good and clunky and yeah.
I need to put pictures with some of my things here.
Yeah, and I like having like what you did there. That's good. I like that. Having the notes and the image in there.
So
And
can you
also,
give me
sorry,
the-
go ahead.
the page again for the hit the streets and stuff? Is
1,
that
2, 3.
1, 2, 3? Okay, I don't have the. I mean,
It's under the heading cyberware tags.
yes, but that are good tags, and we're talking about. And I know unreliable is.
Oh,
here
you
too,
mean
okay. I'm
picking the
completely
specific
lost.
4?
What do I have to pick
Yes.
aside from what is in my character sheet?
Right. So you're asking which of the 4? Okay. I think the playbook might actually say that, but it might not. I don't know. Let me.
Because I mean, in my character sheet, all the cyberware written is good, I mean, I don't have downsides written on it.
In the beginning,
That's what
here
I
it is.
don't get.
Yeah. Which player sheet are you looking at? Let's see. You're looking at
Driver,
Driver. Yeah.
page
So
71.
on the first page, it says
Yes.
cyberware, like middle column, first page, cyberware,
Yes.
Y, and cost.
Mhm.
And look at cost. The first one
Hi.
says you script and saved by yourself. Choose one tag to apply to that piece of cyberware: unreliable, substandard, hardware decay, or damaging.
Which
You see
page
that?
are you? No,
I'm
I
at the
don't.
very. So are you on the? Okay. What are you looking at? Are you looking at the playbook PDF or are you looking at the?
Midnight, page
Okay, you're in Midnight.
71.
Got it. So you're in Midnight in Driver. Here.
Maybe I should know.
Okay, so then in this version of the so it actually lays it out better in the playbook PDF. But here, if you
Okay.
scroll up to, it's in preparing to play. It's in step 4, I think.
Okay, I'll
Page-
just open the
Page
playbook.
54. 54.
Okay.
But it's also in the
Do I
playbook
have-
PDF.
Do I have the playbook here? Yes, I have it. Okay. I'll just take the playbook then.
Okay. But it's also it's in step 4 of preparing to play, which is choose cyberware. And it lists it
Oh
there
yes,
as well.
there it is. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know. They should probably have that in the playbook. I guess the playbooks in the manual don't take you step by step through it.
Yeah,
The
I think
playbooks
that's
in the PDF do
that's
the
the
step by step.
Oh yes,
There's
you
more
have
detail.
The directives as well.
Excuse me?
I see there are the directives as well
Yes.
in the playbook. Do we have to choose now?
You will.
Okay.
We're basically doing steps like 2 through 8, which goes up to and including directives. So you're going to choose cyberware, and that's the
Thanks.
only one I think that actually isn't obvious because you have to have the why and how. But then you choose your playbook moves as per the playbook tells you. You choose gear, and the playbook should tell you that. You consider, so you don't actually choose, but you consider your background and contacts, and we can kind of discuss the background, but we don't choose contacts yet. But you can have some sketched out that you're planning, and then choose personal directives. And we'll go up to that point. And I think that that's spelled out in these playbooks, right? Yeah. So if you're looking at the playbook PDF, it mostly details this. You just go in order and it takes you through these steps. So, Razor, could you go to your character sheet and click the edit button at the top?
Alright.
And in that box that says avatar, are you able to drop that image, like drag that image into there, or choose the file from your disk?
Let me see.
You will likely need to save it locally to do that.
Probably. Then I'll do that.
So my cyber deck Rusty, which I'm assuming is a lot more rusty looking than that, it has these nodes on my fingers that can display the hologram in my hand.
That's funny. I was actually picturing it on the opposite side of your hand for some reason, like on the
I
underside.
was as well, but I couldn't find a picture for it.
Okay.
That's kind of what I imagined it as just kind of like a Fallout Pip-Boy that would like release these prongs that you could then have the hologram. But that's kind of what I'm going with now. I guess that's canon.
Oh, so you were thinking something that was sort of like a pop-out blade, but instead of a pop-out blade, it would have the prongs, and you touch it with your fingertips.
Right, exactly. But I'm just gonna, since I found that picture and I think it's pretty cool, I'm just gonna go with that.
Okay. This is actually probably more realistic with what we have available right now too, because there's actually VR setups that allow you to do something like that track fingers, whereas what you were doing before would be more like touchpads where you don't have as much tracking. This actually probably gives you more natural manipulation.
Right.
Any luck with that image, or do you want me to try to do that? That's interesting. I went to the Tumblr image that you had, and it just shows me an eye that I keep zooming in on, saying there's nothing here.
That's weird.
I copied it from your.
I downloaded it. And
It's weird
uploading
too.
it suck. Oh, yeah, it didn't. It's still.
You what?
It's in my character sheet.
Ah, perfect. Yes, I see it now. Thank you. So how much of that is just something you're wearing, and how much of that is just what you look like?
So I have heavy armor on my gear, right? So I think that's just like the loadout for the mission mostly.
Okay.
If we're looking for like a character portrait, I'll look for something else. So
Yeah,
I
it
have
doesn't.
one.
It's more just a general, and it doesn't even have to match you exactly. It could just give an idea of what you're aiming for, and then you can like deviate from that as much as you want, and obviously change over time.
I look for something more personal, I guess.
But that gives a good baseline for. You actually make that your token, essentially.
Hmm.
But that's fine.
Oh, there's a whole thing for the cyber deck. Alright. So when I turned cyber deck on, it has like the stats like hardening. It has blank/blank. Why do I need two of those?
Let's see. Let me look at your sheets. Where?
All the way at the
Oh, there it
bottom.
is. My guess is because you can be damaged. I think ice would start attacking you and damaging your stats, but it doesn't damage your base stat. So the
So I
left
just
is probably current and right is base.
the maximum.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe there'll be times where the left side goes higher because you have some bonus or something.
And what does that hardening stat represent?
Let's see. My guess is that's like keeping things from hacking you, but let me before I actually
Well,
tell you
there's
that,
also a
let me
firewall stat, is why I was curious.
oh. Then let me So defend is +2 firewall, but hardening isn't even in there. Okay, I'm gonna look it up instead of guessing. I can guess a lot of things, but let's actually find out. So the defensive deck has more hardening and more firewall. How is hardening used?
Isn't it in combat? I mean, in Matrix combat?
Yeah, definitely. Oh, here it is. Okay, so using a cyber deck gives you further options and defenses while hacking. Cyber decks have 4 ratings: hardening, firewall, processor, and stealth, and can run programs. Hardening protects the circuitry of the cyber deck from harm. Oh, I think I already know. Okay, so hardening protects the circuitry of the cyber deck from harm. Spend a point of hardening to prevent an ice attack from damaging your deck. Whereas firewall protects the deck's software from harm. Spend a point of firewall to prevent an ice attack from damaging your programs.
So it's hard
firewall.
software in a way.
Say it again?
It's like hardware versus software in a way.
Yeah. So your programs are software, and I think you can reload them and get them back probably, but your circuitry in your deck, you have to actually have repaired by a tech or something if they get damaged, so it's much higher stakes.
I'm not sure why my picture isn't working either.
Why your picture?
It worked on the other one, but not on this one.
Oh, yeah, that happens sometimes. If you click it, I think it brings it up, although make sure you control click so it doesn't open in the same window. I had the same problem before, and I never put enough time in to figure out if it was just certain areas didn't do it right or if I put it in wrong, but I think certain spots just don't do it like you expect. Or maybe if the image is too big, it doesn't. I don't know what causes that. Yeah, it's not actually even a link. Interesting. Was that what you put in avatar image?
So I had put the original one in cyberware, and when I broadcast cyberware, it puts the picture on there, no problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For CyberDeck, there's a spot that says avatar image. That's actually, I don't know, that might not be where you put it, but that I guess is an image of your online avatar. Like, and that's something you'll want to define at some point, is what you look like in the Matrix. What is your avatar in the Matrix?
Gotcha.
And I think you probably all catch it. I think it's in every playbook, but you'll all start with 5 cred. Now, cred, that's something that deserves discussion. Cred is kind of an abstract concept. It's not necessarily credits or money. It's more your ability to back up favors that you ask for from other people. It could be money, it could be your street cred, your reputation. It's kind of a mix of your reputation, people's knowledge that you'll be able to back something up with payback later or a favor that you're owed or something. And you can use it as, it's almost more like barter than it is hard currency, but you can kind of portray it however you want, whether it be hard currency or favors that you're trading or something else, or just staking your reputation on something.
This works. Oh, that's perfect.
It animates. That's great.
It's my my online avatar is
Nice.
Just a 80s computer geek.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, I'm going to be linking this a couple times while I figure it out.
No problem. We're not really using the chat box for anything, so it doesn't matter if it gets spammed.
I think I can get both of them. There we go. Perfect. What is
As you're
that?
going,
Sorry, go ahead.
as you're going through these steps, just let me know if if they have any questions on how something should work or any suggestions or things like that. No, go ahead.
Yeah, in my gear, there's a armored fridge, 3 armor, immobile. What is that?
It's like a coffin.
It's basically like it's an armored fridge. You can put things in there that you want to. You can assume it's like a fire safe, and it's also Faraday shielded, so it's kind of a safe spot that you can put things in that they probably won't be hacked because they're and they can't be EMP'd and they can't be exploded or burnt or things like that.
I think the idea is that you're supposed to walk from it. Like
Just a what?
you're inside the armored fridge. It's like a
You broke up. I
bunker.
didn't catch that.
I'm saying that the armored fridge is like for the hacker to walk from. Like you enter it basically.
Well, I was just about to ask. One of my gear options is a flashy motorcycle. Could I replace that with like a van with a strength and a weakness, or just a weakness?
You are a hacker, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking that might be useful. Like if I could hack a location from outside, like classic bank robbery style. I don't know because we have a driver. I don't know if that's something
Yeah.
that
Maybe,
like.
maybe you just don't want to enter the boat.
Well, I mean, like if it's totally nondescript and you guys take off in the getaway vehicle, and then I just drive home and have a snack because no one really noticed me there hacking in my van. Was kind of what I was thinking.
I walk.
Think about that. I'm leaning towards no,
Okay.
but if you can, largely, well,
If I only gave it a weakness, like it's not rugged or fast or anything, but it's an unreliable, crappy junker van.
maybe. So you're trying to choose this in place of.
Yeah, because I get an
Gear
armored
is a
coat,
flash.
armored clothing, armored fridge, a microtronics workstation, or a flashy motorcycle.
I guess that kind of fits in with your character concept. Is long. So what tags would you apply?
Let me find the vehicle.
Page 2 on the playbooks.
Page 200.
On the playbook.
So the tech playbook has a van, a trucker van. With 1 strength.
I was just gonna look under gear and try and look for those tags.
Page 2 on the playbook.
I'm
It's there.
the 260 page one.
Page 71.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, maybe it's like a slow van or something like that.
Yeah, you would. I mean, your van would have a 0 power.
But,
And
I think you should, yes, you should definitely do something with the profile, because it would obviously be where it is huge, for instance, so it would have strength as well.
I think
I mean, it's one.
would it have one strength, James?
I'm trying to decide. I mean,
I
you're
mean, it's
replacing a
not a
flashy
van if it's
motorcycle.
not huge.
You're replacing a
Right.
flashy motorcycle that has no actual mechanical. It has no profile. Um, I mean, really, I think this is just a van with no profile, which
It's a car, basically. Like
it's
we are
what?
completely too messy about it. Basically, like, there is no mechanical grounding for it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say yeah. If you so we had flashy. Let me see. Where is flashy?
Maybe it would be like a nondescript or
Flashy is in the look of the vehicle,
Yeah. So you could have a vehicle
in the
with no
list.
profile, but it'll have a look and
The profile just gave armor and strength, looks and weaknesses. It does nothing besides that.
right, and
Anyway,
each point of power gives you a strength. But
yes.
yeah, so basically, yeah, I'm gonna say you got a frame. We'll have a VSC wheels, vehicle power two, a frame, van, design, cargo. Basically, no profile,
is
but
there
you
one
can
that's like commercial,
a
like a commercial van? You know, like oh, I'm not a
yeah.
cable company.
There's cargo van and yeah, there's a commercial van, also courier, and then for looks there's vintage like the not good looks. They're sleek and pristine, but this isn't that. So I'll say the looks are vintage, quirky, garish, nondescript. Those are the ones that probably seem like they would apply potentially. So like choose one of those looks, and if you want even a weakness, that's up to you if you actually want it to have a weakness.
If you won't make me take one, I won't, shoot myself in the foot for no reason. But if you think that I should have one for trading or whatever, that's fair.
I'm just trying to decide how this fares against a flashy motorcycle. Well,
Let's assume
so
that a motorcycle is already kind of fast or faster than a van. I think.
right, but you can't really carry any people, or like the van you could use as transport, whereas the motorcycle would just be you and maybe one other person.
Right.
Um, but and a flashy motorcycle made sense with a hacker because certain types of hackers, the ones that want to be do kind of like fast talk type, and I think that's what flashy would actually gain you. Flashy would give you. Can't I find?
I think it's just a description. Doesn't have any mechanical thing.
Yeah, it's
Just
mostly a description, but I think there's actually a case where it gives you like a plus to fast talk, but I can't find that, so I could just be making that up in my head. Yeah, I guess it just means so a flashy motorcycle. Flashy is almost flashy is like a mixed adjective. It's positive and negative because it stands out, but it also can. It won't always be noticed, but it could be noticed.
Right.
So I would say, yeah, do a van, but with one weakness.
Okay.
slow, pretty easy one.
Yeah.
About the vehicle, I could have a weapon, but I don't see it fit. Do you? Can you come up with any alternative?
So this is for. Let's see. So normally you get a vehicle with a weapon.
Because normally, as long as I have 2 power, which I have, I could take a weapon, but I don't see. Or maybe
You don't
just
think you?
taking no. I
What
I
kind of
won't I
vehicle
won't
is it?
take it. That's
What's the
a
vehicle?
car. It's a car from a. I mean, it belonged to a gang, so it's kinda probably Mad Max looking,
Why
but
would you
not with.
not have a weapon? Is it a choice that you would have
No,
actually
it's a
made,
choice.
or
It's a choice. I could have the weapon because I have 2 power, but I don't think my character would like his car with a weapon on it.
right? So I mean, it was a character choice. He's
Not. I
choosing
mean,
purposely
yes,
not to
yes.
put a weapon on explicitly. What? How would he use that vehicle, either defensively or offensively? Then.
Or maybe he could have mines or something. No, it's not in the. Because I don't see him having I mean something visible who shoots ammos, for instance. But
So is it
maybe
more
I could have
visibility?
like. He wants it to look like a cool car.
Okay. You
I
can
mean,
still have
his way
weapons
of.
that aren't obvious.
Yeah, but yeah.
I mean, if you're
I don't know.
anti-weapon, that's one thing. If he just is for some reason
No,
against
no,
putting
he's
weapons on
not,
his car,
and he's not against weapon.
but if it's just for a looks perspective, then it doesn't need to
Yes.
be obvious.
Okay. I'll probably take the grenade launcher, but it will be like under the car,
'Cause I
like
mean, you'll take what?
the grenade launcher.
Okay, grenade launcher. Right. Because basically you can have a combination of the strengths. So you can have the weapon, but a looks that's nondescript, which would pretty much imply that the weapons were completely hidden unless you're using them. So people might realize they're being shot at once they're being shot at, but not until that point. That is one thing about the items that we create. Ideally, everything is very over the top corp. So you don't just have a pistol. You have like a Dragon DX13 or a do we have a weapons manufacturer in this list? No. So I don't know. If there was a weapon megacorp somewhere, it could be like a their name and then some model and something.
You could like fill in like major players that don't have clocks. You know, like oh, if it's weapons, it's probably a blank. You know,
Yeah.
that
And
would be.
we should do that because ideally, I mean, this is an overly corporate world, so most of the items we have are they're advertised just through what they are. Like you're walking around with an advertisement that shoots people.
Okay, about the weapon, what I'm thinking, if you if you will allow it. I would want my weapon to be hidden without taking style for it, but it would only be able to shoot behind me. Because it would be like oh, what's the name? A tube under the car, and it would look like the
Look like an exhaust.
yes.
Okay. And why? So you're taking that, but instead of something, you're making it. What are you?
I mean, normally the weapon should be like a weapon, so able to shoot in every direction, and so I would want it to be only able to shoot behind me, because
Okay.
it wouldn't move. It would just be a way to throw grenades very
Right.
fast, and
So it's a fixed
I
grenade
mean,
launcher firing back
yes,
only.
exactly, it would be fixed, so it wouldn't move.
Got it.
But
Okay.
people wouldn't be able to see it if they don't completely mess up with the car.
Right. Okay. Yep. Fine.
Okay. Okay, it's done.
And the vehicles will need names.
It's still named the boat, but it needs an image now.
I have a question. It's always like a choice or option that I pick synth. Like for example, I have cyber ears, and if I'm going to listen to something to, let's say, assess, I have to, I just have the option to roll it as synth instead of edge, or must I roll it as synth if I'm using it?
Oh. That is a good question. So cyber ears. Think about that. You may. So you don't have to.
All right.
You may roll synth for assess. But only when your enhanced hearing helps. So if you're assessing something that has nothing to do with hearing, obviously you aren't going to. I think I lost. Give me a second. I gotta. In fact, I can't hear Khan. I can see he's talking, but it's not there. So. Fresh roll 20. Test. I don't think I can hear anyone else, but if you can hear me, nod. It looks like you said I can hear you. Second. Now roll 20 is being weird. Test. Can you hear me? Am I broadcasting? Hello? No? Did that not work? Nope. So you cannot hear me, correct? Test. Well, looks like I'm broadcasting out, but now I still can't hear. Ah, fun. So you can hear me? Can't hear you. Okay. As the site is muted. It should not be muted. Why is it muted? Think that fixed it.
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe we'll set up Discord for next time. I can't do Discord right now. I have to change a bunch of sound settings to get that to work, but maybe I'll preset that up for next time and we can try Discord.
No, well, we're almost done.
Yeah.
Need
Yeah,
to
I mean,
read the link.
this is the perfect time for that to happen anyway, since we kind of just you're going through and filling out the sheets. So, other than the fact that there might be questions that could be answered, I think this is good. It happens now. Does Discord have video, or is it just audio?
I think some of them do.
I'm sure it has a video.
I still don't see Khan, but I guess he's having Roll20 issues also.
Hello?
Hey. So I'll see if I can get Discord working the way I want it to for next week to see if we can avoid some of these issues, but this is a good time for it to happen, I guess.
So I'm a little bit ahead, I'm assuming, but I'm on my directives.
Yeah, at this point you can get everyone can go all the way to directives. Like we'll stop at links because we need to do links together, but you can do everything up to that point individually.
So
We could probably almost call it for the night. We can wrap up questions, and if you have further questions, you can ask over the week. But go ahead.
are we doing links
Okay.
next session?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Are we doing links next session?
Yes, because links we have to do together, but
Okay.
everything up to links we can do individually. And if there's anything that you think might fit in with what someone else does, you can ask, and we can figure that out. But
Okay. One quick question then. So I took the network directive. When your membership in blank hinders the mission, mark experience. So he's going to be a part of some sort of hacking group.
yeah, that's perfect.
I'll name them too.
So yeah, that'll definitely be a side organization that will, I guess, get you into some trouble and noticed. the fact that you're calling that out as one of your directives does imply that you're probably going to be in situations where that comes up. So as long as you're good with that causing you issues, then yeah.
Yeah, I mean, each of them has a trade-off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And by calling that as your directive, you're basically telling me you want that trade-off at some point to come up fairly often, or at least sometimes. So I just don't. Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to pick. I don't even know why you would. You wouldn't want to pick one that you wouldn't want to come up. So probably doesn't even need to be said.
Can we take a third
A third.
directive?
No. No.
Can
I mean, you
we
can have
take
you can have a
directives?
personal directive, but not one that will actually grant you experience.
Can we take directives from other playbooks?
You can take yes. So
Okay.
the 4 suggestions shown in the playbooks are just suggestions. They fit the
Okay.
playbook pretty well, but you can choose any of the any of the directives listed in the core book. They're actually all listed on one page. And if none of those fit, or if there's something that you feel fits better, we can also do custom directives.
Okay, that's great. So I'm going to take the masochist one. Because if I die, it's okay. I'm always dead.
I guess that fits your character, so yeah. Masochist is one of those ones where you can see people picking for min-max purposes, just to like take advantage and exploit the system, but no, I think that fits.
And this one is really like you want it or you don't take it.
Right, yeah.
How much would the cost of a program be for my cyber deck?
I believe that, let me look, but I think that cyber
Cyber-
programs are typically like 2 cred-ish. There's actually an exact answer for that. Assets. So assets in the core book on page 125 starts listing a lot of this out. There is a list of, so spending 1 cred will get you the replacement parts for a cyber deck, but so spending 2 cred will get you more complex restricted gear from a fixer. Like, one of the things is basic hacking programs. So 2 cred for basic programs that would be easy to get, and more complicated programs would be higher, like maybe 3 or 4. One of you has skill wires, right? Because so it's basically skill softs also would be in general 1 or 2 cred depending on what the skill soft is. Oh, there might be more explicit ones that are more expensive. All right, I'm gonna go ahead. Was that someone else talking, or is that my echo?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, I think it was my echo. I'm gonna drop off in a minute, but I will ask if you have any questions that you want to be sure to ask now. Go ahead, and otherwise feel free to either ping in Roll20, or we could probably set up a Slack channel at some point if we wanted to do that or something. But for now, we can use Roll20. Yeah. So if any last minute questions for tonight.
I think I'm good as well.
I don't have a question, but just a comment. I think it would be awesome if we could make logos for our corporations. I think that would be neat, just because that I feel like the branding is a big part of it with all the corporations. So just like a visual component.
Yeah, it would be good to have just a quick logo, at least for the main corporations. And maybe if we, as we come up with weapons, we should throw out some ideas for weapon megacorps and like what their primary, what they're known for. And then we could do logos for those at some point too. But definitely for the 5 that we have, we should come up with some kind of logo for those. Whether something like if you have any artistic talent, feel free to take advantage of it. Otherwise, just find something that seems to fit.
Style wise, I found I have a machine pistol and found this one. I figured that would like kind of come close to that.
Yeah, it's actually very. I have the same thing in one of my character sheets, but I actually went with a different one that had a silencer. So I found one just like this, but it had a silencer. So yeah, I like that gun. It fits.
All right.
The only thing that doesn't fit is my van.
I like that. Look elsewhere. That's
Alrighty.
very nondescript.
I'm gonna call it a night too, guys. Take it easy.
All right, and feel free to jump into this game at any point and modify your character when we're not around. The game's open until next week, so do whatever you need to.
Cool.
All right.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good afternoon.
Good morning for me, but or good way early morning. Yeah, it's 3 a.m. for me.
Yes. It's 12 o'clock at my house. So.
Noon.
Yes, noon already.
Nice.
Okay, I'm gonna mute and stuff. And
Okay, that's
no,
fine. Yeah, feel free.
I head off. To be honest. All I need is the context, and I'll send you questions about context.
All right,
Probably.
perfect.
If
And
I
context,
have to.
we aren't going to actually have context. You'll just have an idea of who you might have as contacts and how you fit into organizations, things like that.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night, and was good so far.
Not.
So
I won't have a good night. Too late for it.
Have a good whatever the next 12 hours, whatever that happens to be.
See you.
Right.
Have a good night.
Yeah, I will. Later.
Oh, we're done?
Oh, yeah. Did you have any questions?
Oh, no. My thing just hung up, so I had to restart.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna head out, but yeah, feel free to, if you're still working on any part of the sheet, feel free to fill it out as you need, and like the game will stay open. I'm just gonna jump off, but and if you have any questions, you can use Roll20 to ask the Roll20 forum for this, and then we can probably set up either a Slack channel or a Discord channel moving forward, and I'll figure that out. Any questions that you have right now?
Not at the moment.
Okay. All right, thanks, and I'll catch you later.
All right, see you.